Something I've never done, I'll go to my director and ask her, and she hasn't turned me down yet. Okay? All right, thank you guys, and I'll turn you over to Sam.
Morning, everyone.
Hey, Sam.
It's another beautiful day, isn't it? Every day is a beautiful day in Southwest Virginia. There's no question about that. We're going to start off this morning trying to get focused on a positive note, okay? We're going to go around the room. I want everybody to introduce yourselves and give me one positive thing that's happened this morning to you, or that's happened for you, that's been good for you today, okay? We're going to start right here.
Okay. I'm Dustin Keith. I'm an associate realtor with Stewart & Associates Realty here in town, and I serve on the Workforce Development Board. And I also, during the day, work for Cumberland Mountain Community Services doing substance abuse prevention. Something positive just today.
Sure.
It's still early.
Sure, that's exactly right. It is early. So you have to think a little bit for it.
The snow was really pretty coming in this morning.
Okay.
I'm Stephen Mullins with the Workforce Development Board, and my title doesn't really tell you exactly what I do, but it is small business coordinator, even though some of the stuff I do is not just straight up business services. I actually expected worse snow this morning, so that was quite nice to see that it was just a dusting. And it wasn't quite as cold as it was yesterday. So I'm happy about that.
Delana Bodmer, own a business in town, State Farm, 26 years at it. And my positive this morning was when I woke, even though it was snowing, I still saw the stars.
Great.
I'm David Eaton. I currently serve on Russell County Board of Supervisors. I've just announced that I'm seeking the nomination for the House of Delegates, 4th District. And I just wanted to say that I'm very blessed. I woke up this morning and I had my health. I'm above ground. And I've got 3 sons, a daughter-in-law, my wife, and I feel very blessed.
I'm Caleb Crewy. I'm actually David's campaign manager. But positive thing was this morning, I got up and I got a play from the puppy. So that's always, I say he's a puppy, but he's 3 months and 50 pounds, so.
Still acts like one, right?
Right.
Okay.
My name is Jessica Lambert, and I'm with Living and Block, and I'm just blessed to wake up and be able to attend the meeting.
Charlie Brown, I'm an outside salesperson at Living and Block also, and something positive, I guess, is I'm like everybody else, and I'm blessed, have a blessed life, wife, kids, everybody's healthy, and that's always a blessing for sure.
Right.
I'm Wyatt, Scooter Carter, so Scooter is what I go by, but it's kind of stuck with me my whole life. A positive thing that happened today was I checked my email, and I'm in the process of starting a new business, and I ordered some bikes, and I got an email that the bike that I ordered I'm not going to get, but she's going to give me a better one. So that's always a good email to get, and so it's good to didn't know Jason until he knocked on the door, so I don't believe things are coincidence. So I want to, hear more from Sam and from Stephen Ward, and you said you were a small business coordinator, so I probably want to talk to you also. Okay.
I'm Mike Carter with Home Nursing Company Incorporated, and I woke up this morning. That always helps. And the end of the week, but a lot of things come together, so not a lot of carryover for next week.
Okay.
I'm Tiffany Goff. I work for the Southwest Virginia Workforce Development Board. And my happy for the morning is that I actually managed to have 30 minutes of time just to relax with my husband before everybody woke up this morning because there was no school and all the things. So we don't usually get that. It's usually up in chaos, and so we had 30 minutes of quiet. It was great.
Okay.
I'm Lisa Hubbard. I am the workforce development specialist. I do both adult dislocated, well, not both, all adult dislocated worker, youth, and then I do the TANF program now for the community in Russell County. And I woke up this morning and my clothes was dry. I've been having dryer issues, now I got a new one, so it was a total win this morning.
Very great. Randy?
I'm Randy Rose, relatively new Dean of Workforce and Continuing Education at Southwest Virginia Community College. And something this morning.
Something positive.
Yeah, so we're on late schedule today, which meant I didn't have to be on campus at 7:30 or so. So I was able to pack my stepdaughter's lunch and make hot chocolate for my wife and look like a superhero, which usually I'm gone before they even get out of bed. So it was nice this morning.
Paula Owens, I work at Southwest Virginia Community College. 2-hour delay always makes me happy. And I had planned on taking a rest day from workout, but I got one in anyway, so that made me happy.
Okay. Great. Jump back over here. Introduce yourself. One positive thing that happened today.
So I'm Sharon Van Dyke, and currently I serve as president for the Russell County Chamber of Commerce. And I'm employed by Preferred Home Healthcare in Richlands, Virginia. And something positive is I got the cutest picture of my grandsons this morning, so that always makes me smile really big.
I'm Linda Allen. I'm the Director of Adult Education Programs. We provide services in Tazewell, Buchanan, Dickinson, and Russell. And my good thought for this morning is that this week we started 4 industry-specific training programs. And the late school schedules and closures have played havoc with us this week. But I rejoice this morning that we survived, and we have enrolled 73 new students this week.
Great. Ernie?
Yeah, my name's Ernie Bencombe with ARC TV. We've got over 1 million viewers in the Quad State area. We have a YouTube channel that goes all over North America. We're starting a podcast. We're working with David over here to get him elected. And had a great day today. I already went to the doctor's office, got a clean bill of health, so I'm good to go. And I know most of the people in the room already.
Very good. Jason, positive thing today?
Okay, like I said earlier, my name's Jason Sarton. I'm the Business Services Coordinator for the board. Positive thing today is I was able to make it here on time and set all this up before you guys got here. Sam and I have actually done these in every county throughout Southwest Virginia. They've been very successful, and I think after it's said and done, we have done 27, 28 of them. Is that right?
Right, yeah.
And we are going to have one regional roundtable here in Lebanon with all the information that we've gathered throughout Southwest Virginia. And I encourage all you guys to attend. And I'm glad that you're in attendance today. Thank you.
If you could introduce yourself and tell us about one positive thing that's happened this morning.
One positive thing that happened this morning, I got up feeling good.
Great.
And I get to sit beside David Eaton, and he's running for House deputy. And the unemployment rate in Russell County is 4.2 or 4.4, and the national average is 3.8, and I think we're getting there.
All right, great. Well, I'm Sam Wolford. I work with an organization called Gen Edge. We're a manufacturing extension partner for the Commonwealth of Virginia. We do a lot of different work with a lot of different folks. A lot of positive things for me today, and most every day. I get to live in a beautiful part of the country, literally in the country. And I got to travel across Hatter's Gap this morning, which was nice. It's always nice to be able to come across there, and I got across there before any snow came down, so I was very thankful for that. But probably the most positive thing is I get to be in a room with people who have interest in seeing Southwest Virginia move forward. And to me, that's a passion. I want to see Southwest Virginia grow and move forward. So the process that we're going through, like Jason said, we've done this many times. I've done it 22 times now. And it's been different each time because it's been in a different locality, but there's a lot of commonality. And there's a reason why we're going through the process we go through. We started this just doing it with manufacturers, bringing manufacturers into the room and saying, okay, you know, what's going on with you? What are some of your challenges? Where are you at? What are some of your strengths? How can we help you grow your business? And we noticed that as we talked to the manufacturers, the problems that they brought up weren't just manufacturer problems, they were community problems. They were challenges that we as a community have had and have faced over the decades. Some of them were related to having primarily a single industry economy. It's an economy that's based primarily upon coal. That was some of the problems. Some of the problems were getting workforce, finding trained workforce, finding folks that could pass drug tests, those types of things. We also noticed that some of the things they needed were very similar to what the community needs. And we'll talk about that as we go through the process. Let me explain the process to you a little bit as we get started. Generally, we start with a spot matrix. We don't have to start there. We can start someplace else if you guys prefer. We start with a spot matrix where we're looking at our strengths. We're looking at our problems. Those are both current and internal, okay? Those are things that are going on right now, and it's stuff that is about us, okay? Then we look at opportunities and threats. Those are future. Those are, okay, where can we go, what can we do? And what could happen from outside that could impact us? And is there anything we can do about it? So that's our strengths, problems, opportunities, and threats. They also have heard of it as a SWOT, okay? And a lot of companies do this, a lot of organizations do this. We talk about those things as a community, okay? So it's not specific to what it is you do. It's specific to everything that everybody does, right? So it's actually going to be pretty big. And we've got a lot of input on these spots throughout the region. The next step in the process is talking about the industry structure. And as I mentioned, we generally do this with manufacturers. So we're talking about their specific industry, right? So a lot of times this is the coal industry we're talking about. We're talking about the different players, competitors they may have in the coal industry. But that's not how we use it in these regional roundtables. We look at the industry structure as, okay, how is our communities? How is our region structured? You know, who are all the players that need to be at the table if we as a region want to move forward, okay? We talk about, you know, what are some of the new entrants? What are some things that are happening that's new that is beginning to change our region? It's beginning to have an impact on the way that we do business, on the way our region is growing. We also talk about substitutes. What's coming that could change the way we do things? And I think a lot of times we have a very short vision. I know we do. I do. I try to look out 5 years and I can't see 5 years. I can only see a year and a half at best, because things are changing so quickly. And we're going to talk a lot about how things are changing and what impacts that. We'll talk about technologies and how those are changing our world, how technology changes are changing our world. We'll talk about trends and challenges. We'll talk about what the products and services are, what it is that we provide as a region to the customers that we have, whether it's the business you're in or whether it's the services we provide as a service organization or whether it's what we provide to tourists or others who may be coming in from outside. We'll be talking about the key markets a little bit. You know, what are the key areas that we need to be able to provide services in? Then, and I apologize for not moving the slides forward because it may have been a little easier for someone to see on the slides. We'll go to a context map. And we're going to talk about things like trends. What are some of the trends? And you'll notice there'll be duplication in this process. There'll be things that you'll see show up on the industry structure map that will also show up here. Things that will show up on the strengths, problems, opportunities, and threat maps that will also show up here. And there's a reason for that. The more that things show up, the more we can begin to realize, hey, this really is going to have an impact on us long term. Okay? So we'll talk about the trends. We'll talk about political factors. And whether we like it or not, political factors have an impact on our region. They have an impact on how things are going for our businesses, how things are going for our citizens, how we grow. They have an impact. So we'll talk about some of that. We'll talk about the economic climate. And rather than metrics, which we have here, usually I get it changed. I didn't get it changed on this one. We're going to talk about inhibitors. What are the things that can slow us down? What are the things that have been holding us back over the years? And what is it that we could do about those things? We'll talk about customer needs. Again, this is going to be similar to what the key markets are, but it's going to be what is it specifically that those key markets need. Okay? We'll talk about technology factors yet again, and you'll see that theme come up a lot as we go through and discuss. And we'll talk about uncertainties. Next, we have what's called the solution maturity curve. And, I'm sorry, I went one too far. How many people have seen this before and familiar with what it is? I kind of give it another name as well. I call it the innovation cycle. Okay? So with the solution maturity curve, the product maturity curve, you have products that will come in to being, right? They're new. They cost money to develop, so they're really not that profitable initially. But as you get them out into market, they become more and more profitable because you don't really have any competition. It's based on your idea. It's based on what you developed or what you're doing. Then as they get closer and closer to their peak profitability, their peak margins, right? Competitors look at it and say, you know, I could do that. I could do that. And they'll come into the market. And as they come into the market, what do? They drive the margins where? Down, right? Because you're competing price-wise with your competitors. So what is it ultimately you wind up competing on? If they're providing a very similar product, you wind up competing on two things. You compete on labor and you compete on supply, right? If you can get your stuff cheap enough, then you can have a little extra margin. If you can get labor cheap enough, you can have a little extra margin. As a business, margin is key to growth, right? You have to keep your margins where you can grow. So we'll talk about this in the context of where we are as a region and where the way we provide service, the way we provide products in the industry, the way we provide things like education. We'll talk about those things in the context of the solution maturity curve in the
Later.
2011 and 2013. Do you have any idea what they're valued at, their opening market is valued at? What level? For Uber, who came into the market first, that 2011, they're valued at $125 billion. How old are they? They're 8 years old, right? In terms of company life, they haven't been around very long at all, have they? But that innovation cycle they were able, with that innovation cycle, the speed of it, to actually capture a market that used to be captured by a totally different group, right? It was captured by taxis in the city. So taxis have been impacted, but it was also captured by things like bus lines and rail as you get further on out of the cities. So they've actually been able to capture a market that, you know, nobody ever would have figured there would be an innovation in that market, right? Don't make sense, it's just somebody riding in a car. But the technology drove that innovation. And Lyft has only been around since 2013. Not quite 6 years yet, because it wasn't early in 2013 that they were developed, but they're worth $25 billion. So in about 5.5 years, they've gone from nothing to $25 billion. Think about that. It's unbelievable. And what facilitated that? The internet. The internet technology facilitated that possibility. So we'll be talking about that a good bit as we move forward. We'll be talking about this product maturity curve a lot as we go through this process. Next, we're going to talk about journey vision. And this is something I want you to be thinking about. And you all have sticky notes there in front of you. I would like for you, as we go through, the next hour or so, be thinking about if you could wave a magic wand and change things magically in 5 years, what would it look like? What would our region look like in 5 years if you could wave a magic wand and make it happen? Okay? So as we go through this process, we're writing down those. It can be a statement, it can be a single word, it can be just a thought. It doesn't have to be drawn out in the form of a vision statement. I'm just looking for vision themes right now. So we'll be working on developing a vision, and we'll talk about the guiding principles and the values, the things that support that vision, the things we hold on to as we go through the process of realizing that vision, and the things that will help us to realize that vision. Okay? And then we'll talk about the mission, what it is we're going to start doing every day, the changes we're going to make every day to actually use those guiding principles and those values to lead us to that vision. We'll talk some about critical issues, because there's always critical issues. There's always things that can happen that are going to inhibit our ability to reach that vision. The key is holding on to that vision, not giving it up. I think, and one thing that came up a lot as we went through this process in a lot of different places is people outside have a view of the Appalachian region that we don't really favor, that really doesn't reflect us very well, right? And another issue that came up was that sometimes we have that same vision about ourselves. That we can be anything we want to be if we're willing to believe that we can be that. Okay? This is a time that's different than any other time in history. And I think a lot of times we miss where we're at in time. It's different than it's ever been. So we'll talk more about that. Next, we'll move on through and we're going to talk about a little bit about our competitive advantage. You'll see it's called value proposition on the thing, but we actually changed that because it's not just a value proposition. It's the thing that gives us advantage whenever we're competing. Whenever we're trying to win at whatever it is that we're doing. So we're changing that to competitive advantage. We'll talk about, again, customer needs, interest. Who are those customers? Who is it that we need to be able to make sure we're providing stuff for? Whether it's services or whether it's products or whether it's education, who is that? And what is it about us that's special, that sets us apart and makes it possible for only us to do that? Okay? We're going to talk about the content, how, exactly what does that look like? How do we get that to market? How do we get that to our individual, who it is we need to get those services or those products out to? Then we're going to move on and we're going to talk a little bit about bold steps. And if you notice, the vision is the center. That's what we're trying to head for. That's what we're looking for. The bold steps are, okay, these are things we could do based on our principles and values. Excuse me. We're going to do this every day. We're going to base it on our principles and values, and it's going to lead us to this vision. But there's some big, bold things that we can do that are different than we've ever done before. They're outside of our norm, and these are the things we're going to try to implement and try to do. Okay, the point of this is we're doing this across the region. I'm willing to bet that there's going to be some commonality in the bold steps. I'm willing to bet that there's going to be some folks that say, these are the things we need to do, and they're going to come back with maybe one, maybe two, there may be three. If there are, is it something we really should be looking at doing on a regional scale, in a regional way, to make sure that we are capturing that opportunity as it is. From there, the idea is that eventually, once we get some of that commonality, once we understand what those bold steps are for the region, we'll talk about game plan. okay? We can all plan, okay? We can put together ideas, this is what we want to do. But how often do comprehensive plans get set up on a shelf? How often do plans ever get pulled down and really read and thought about and considered? And is the plans that we currently have reflective of the times we live in? Because a lot of times we build plans around the way we've always done things instead of looking and realizing that the world is changing so quickly that we can't afford to do that anymore. And we'll talk about that as we talk through some of this process. But the game plan is intended to say, okay, these are the people that are responsible. This is who's going to do it. And this is the time frame we're going to try to do it in. And ultimately, it's intended to help us as a region to find projects that we can actually do that are large scale and that will have lasting and long-term impacts. And that's the goal, is to create lasting and long-term impacts. So I'm going to start out talk a little bit about spot maintenance. And every time I do this, it's a little bit different because really I do a lot of, I hate to say it, flying by the seat of my pants, so to speak, as I do these. Ultimately, it's what you guys have to say that's important, not what I have to say. I can tell you, I can plant seeds, I can give you bits and pieces of information, but ultimately it's our community as a whole. It's not mine. So together, we need to come up with ideas we need to move the region forward. So we'll start with which map? Which map do you want to start with? Which map do you think will have the biggest, quickest return of information and data that we need to see? Or do you just want to go left to right, start with spot matrix and go as I went through the thing? That's okay. That's pretty much what everybody has done. Everybody's wanted to go through the process like we normally would.
Well, given your theme from the beginning, let's start with strengths. Let's talk about what's happening that's right and good,
Okay.
and where we're strongest, where we've been stronger.
Okay, that sounds good. Sounds good.
I think you take those strengths and we look at opportunities, and we've got a multitude of them.
All right. I think this is a time of opportunity unlike any other time in the history of mankind. Just my opinion. And I'll give some support for that as we go through and down the road.
Well, we've seen a huge difference in promoting regional cooperation.
Okay.
Regional
So
cooperation.
that would be a strength, is we're starting to see growth of regional cooperation. Okay. So growth, let me start taking some notes here while you're doing it. Okay, what other strengths do we have? And I'm encouraged because you guys wanted to start with strengths. I think that's great. I think it's fantastic.
I think there's a movement toward diversification of, in a lot of ways, but economic development and skills and training and all those areas.
So a movement toward diversification across the board, both in what it is we do, the markets we serve, the way we serve those markets, the way we make sure that we have labor force to serve those markets. Okay, so diversification would be a strength. What else?
I think some of our strength is in leadership. I think we've now got the leadership in the counties beginning to look forward and reach out for new opportunities. And just like when we didn't get the hemp deal, well, they didn't get discouraged. They went over there and made something happen out of losing.
Okay, so leadership. Very good. What else? What other strengths?
And I apologize for being late. I'm Greg Brown, Superintendent for Russell County Schools, but I think one of the things that we're seeing with several of the counties today is the fact that we also have these programs designed to take our graduates to the next level. We have Board Supervisor member with us today who's instrumental in that for Russell County. But we have free tuition for all of our graduates now, starting with the class of 2019, so they can go on and secure a free college education through the community college system with Southwest. They can go on from there to articulation agreements and complete a 4-year program at Bradford or Emory and Henry or William and Mary, as a matter of fact, through these articulation agreements. So for our parents, we're going to have an opportunity for them to help fund, or the student themselves, a 4-year bachelor's degree for half the cost, basically. And we think that's going to have a positive impact on our workforce going forward. As a matter of fact, I think that's what has brought a few businesses to Russell County, is the fact that we can separate ourselves from this. And I know that our friends in Buchanan and Dickinson County are also considering the same.
Okay. So, free 2-year college education that can grow into additional. So
Who's that for?
That's a big strength.
What kids qualify?
Well, again, I can't speak to the programs in Buchanan County. Dickinson County's looking at it as well, but in Tazewell. But in Russell County, any of our graduates that have a 2.0 GPA can go through the process, very simple, completing the FAFSA package, if you will. There always seems to be a thorn for us, if you guys recall. But anyway, these students can not only have free tuition through Southwest Virginia Community College. We provide transportation through 4-county transit and such. Even in hardship cases, we can even take care of funding, textbooks and so forth for the student. The goal, it's open for all of our students, but I'll be honest with you, our focus group were those students that would most likely be first time in the family, first generation, college students that have some misconceptions about some barriers to getting a college education and such. But as far as who can do it, all of our students. As a matter of fact, we had Southwest at Castlewood High School week before last, and we spoke about the race. Our program's called RACE, Russell County Access to College Education. And we had 31 seniors at Castlewood High School commit to the RACE program, which is just incredible. When you talk about the Castlewood being the smallest of the 3 high schools that we have in Russell County. So we're off to a great start. We're really excited about it. But a lot of that come back, again, the regional cooperation, just cooperation within our individual jurisdictions, the cooperation that we have with our board of supervisors right now, and that's not always the case. We all can talk about peaks and valleys, I think, but ours is incredible right now. I mean, it really is. The things that we've done in the last 3 years, I don't know how far back you'd have to go, Mr. Eaton, to find that type of.
It's a long way.
It's a really long way. Yeah.
And well, I would like to say too, I appreciate Dr. Brown. It takes a team, and that's one of the greatest assets I think that we have in Southwest Virginia is when you pull your education sector in Southwest Virginia Community College to the table. We have a president, Dr. Wright, there now that has a vision for this area and this region. And Dr. Brown, not only as our superintendent, but to me as a friend, that takes these challenges and these sacrifices to move this area forward. It's very critical that the things that we've instituted break the cycles. And that's what I'm all about, is breaking cycles. And I'm not really here to give a huge political speech, but I am very passionate about what we're doing and the reason that we're doing, and it's showing up. It's making a huge impact. The partnerships that we have with Southwest and them adding 14 different athletic programs and 25 scholarships per program enhances that. And Dr. Brown serves on the college board, and those are key components of how we break these cycles. We need to set the career path of these children. They're not getting a lot of help with that. And if you're going to have a new employee come to your industry as well as a new employee come to our industry, we need to get them trained. And we also need to get them vested in Southwest Virginia. That 2 years of free education is going to keep them there, keep them here in Southwest Virginia for an additional period of time. So not only that, they're going to pull 100 hours of community service somewhere here within your area. It could be in your business, it could be in the home health. And that might give them a passion to say, that's what I want to do. It could be in lumber, it could be in sales, it could be in many factions in the county. It could be, with agriculture. So, all this is working. And it's working because I think we're really pushing the envelope, thinking outside the box, so.
Yeah. I guess in another point to that, and I'll hush, but we're very transparent, and I don't think you see that a lot in counties and entities when it comes to, in our case, Board of Ed and Board of Supervisors. I mean, we've talked about projects, and we have committees that meet to represent both entities. We were just, we did our budget of need, which is a requirement by the Code of Virginia for school divisions to submit their budget of need to the, in our case, Board of Supervisors, and I did that this morning. We had a board meeting last night. But in our workshop, we were talking about some major projects we were looking at, and our friends were there, and they said, could you come over and give us a little bit more detail about that? And they invited me to come over, and we shared a presentation Monday night. A very detailed presentation and stuff to answer some questions and maybe predict some possible questions and answer those questions ahead of time to help move that needle forward on progress.
All right. It sounds like we got some positive things going on in Russell County for sure. We'll talk more about that as we get a little further along in the process. What other strengths do we have?
So to add to those statements, I think it's fair to say that we've got quality educators as well.
Quality
in the system
educators,
right now.
okay. Quality educators.
We have some folks that have a heart.
Okay.
And, and it's more than just, even through workforce development, I mean, we have learned that not every child's going to go to college, but they can still be successful in life. Some of those kids may just need training. Some of them may just need the 2-year degree that we can offer them at the community college. And I think in times past, we looked at that, and possibly it was driven into us by other business leaders that if you didn't have a 4-year degree, you didn't have anything. And that's not necessarily the case. We've got a lot of skills, and we've got a lot of trade sets in this area. And then we also have the adult education. Ms. Linda Allen here can talk about that. So it's not just educating children, but we're serious in Russell County about education.
Okay. So quality education, other strengths.
I'll just tag on to that. I live outside of Russell County, but I think that we're starting to see key leaders in education positions. I heard a school principal talking about the transition from my stepdaughter to high school, and that's how it was presented, is there are multiple tracks for your career path. In college, 4-year college was one, but he devoted as much time to, there's also a path to get you in a $50,000 a year job right out of school, or a couple months out of school if you want to do that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is there's sort of a shift in communication and about career paths. I don't know if that's the case all over the region, but it's good to see that happening at those higher levels and from our parents and everyone.
So there's a shift in focus more on career paths rather than just on a college path.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I will tell you
So
this.
shift towards career path focus.
Sorry. I will tell you this, one of my passions, I guess, is to build a portfolio. And we have done that to have this when industries decide they want to locate. Also, just to support our existing industries. You can go to existing industries, you can help them as well to grow and develop 5 more jobs, 1 more job. I do know that we started an entrepreneurial fund. And through that entrepreneurial fund, it was a grant working through Margie Douglas at the college. It provided around, I'm going to estimate around 400 jobs for about $250,000 investment. And what that did, it presented hope and faith back into our people and give them opportunity. $10,000 you'd think might go a long way. $10,000 can put hope and faith into somebody, an entrepreneur that wants to start somewhere and want to get started. We've not had one failure in this program, and just thankful to that. But it's stimulated. What it's done, it's stimulated that entrepreneurial vision. Somebody that says, well, I might not be able to get the money, I can't get somebody to back me, but I got this vision, I got this ideal, I really want to get this thing out there. We have thousands of those here within Southwest Virginia. We have talent through our public education, Dr. Brown can tell you, and we also have talent at our community college level, just giving them a chance and an opportunity. That's where it's going to show up. And so and also, the marketing of how we market ourselves. It's not all gloom and doom. We're showing up here with 5 new industries. Landed another one the other night, a Canadian company that's made the announcement to locate here. And all that is because it's not about the 100,000 square foot building. It's about us, and it's about the next generation of worker. And when you show them that, how we're setting their career path, and this is the worker you're gonna have, and they're gonna be educated. And like Sharon said, it might not be, but a one-year certificate program, could be an HVAC or whatever, but once you do that, and they see it, because our industries, Dr. Brown will tell you, when they look at what we're offering, they say, well, the building's fine, but here's what we're coming for. We're coming for what you're doing here with the next generation of worker. And it's stimulated that through the community college level. It's stimulated also through the partners with the four-year schools that are wanting to get a piece of what now Southwest is doing and public education is doing. And I give Dr. Brown all of them the credit for that move. But
And to add to the education portion of that discussion, I'm scheduled to meet with every career and technical school throughout Southwest Virginia, and I've already started with the majority of them. My hopes are to connect these schools to the businesses that I work with, to do internships, apprenticeships on completion of their training. These vocational schools, I think a lot of times they get neglected. And at the same time, I'm trying to do a poll to find out what kind of equipment they may need, and we're going to try to get them equipment as well.
That's, when you speak to the schools, you're going to receive a lot of support for that, because that really fits in with the profile of a graduate, and that's some of the new changes that we're looking at in K-12 education is internships, externships, to where we get students out into businesses. And it is a problem in very rural areas, the fact that you've got X number of students and you have, a number of businesses that really can't support all of those students. So we're looking at different options like virtual and that type of thing as well. But, to speak to what Mr. Eaton was talking about with the, the Canadian company, I was invited to be part of that discussion with them that morning. And they were just fascinated to hear about the things that's going on with our school division. In fact, here in Southwest, even though we have some of the lowest salaries in Southwest, we have some of the highest performing school divisions in the state. And again, it's just not Russell County. This is true across the board. But for Russell County, we were 14th in the state on overall SOL performance. Year before last, 22nd this year. And we're just excited about it. And again, they were just floored to hear back, because they're talking about how poor their school divisions are in Canada.
Sam, I think we have a strength in our citizens. In the adult world, we are serving those undereducated, undertrained adults, and yet we see that within them, they come to us because they want to do better.
Right.
And they want better for their families. And there is that, the hope is not dead.
Right.
The hope is still alive in these folks, and a lot of our clients are women who have struggled for years and years, and are at a point they come to us, they're really reaching out for the help that they need to take that next step to improve their lives. And that's through education and training. And isn't that a wonderful thing that we are able to provide that through our adult ed program and our other services at the community college? We have a great relationship with Mountain Empire and Southwest in that we can help our students to take the steps they need to enroll there as well. But
So strength of our citizens?
yes. And the
I would agree
the
with that.
desire
The desire
to
to
do
grow.
it.
The desire to grow. The desire to be different. I would agree with, with what I've heard about our people. I've worked with manufacturers throughout the region, many of them. I have about 46 clients right now in Southwest Virginia that I'm working with on various levels. And I'm astounded by the genius that we have. I would put us up against anybody, right?
Absolutely.
We have the ability to solve problems that a lot of folks just don't have. They're just not, they're not common traits. The challenge that I see, and the thing that I want to try to, the seed I want to plant in this process today is, rather than reacting to problems and solving them that way, which is what we're used to doing, We do that, we've done that for years in the coal industry. We're seeing more and more and more of that. But with this product maturity curve, the innovation life cycle, being so fast, we can't really afford to wait to see the problem before we solve the problem. So we need to learn to think forward, learn to anticipate the problems, and react to what we anticipate the problems are going to be, rather than just wait till the problems are there, right? It's a different way of thinking. It's not something that we're used to. It's something that our businesses have a hard time grasping because it's a little more risky. But I would venture to say the risk associated with not taking that type of approach are going to be much higher long-term. And when I'm talking about long-term, I'm talking about we want our businesses to be here for the next 40 years, right? Long-term, it's going to be much more risky to do nothing, to keep acting as we have, keep doing things as we have, than to change the way that we think, the way that we see that future that's coming. So we'll talk more about that as we go. What other strengths do we have in our region?
Sam?
Yes, sir.
I think one of our strengths that we have, and I think it's untapped, is the tourist industry side of things. I moved here in 1976. I used to run up at Pittston a lot, but after I finished my run, I would sit on those steps and I would look at those mountains. And for me, I can't speak for everybody in the room, but to me, this is one of the most beautiful areas around. And I think when you start talking about the tourist industry, you have to enhance the mountains, you have to enhance the streams, you have to enhance some of the waterfalls. And so I feel like there's a lot of aspects to the tourist industry that we haven't even looked at yet. And I think that's an untapped market.
Okay, so we have both the strength, we have the tourist industry that we currently have, but also an opportunity to continue to grow that industry throughout the region, right?
And if I understand it right, that we're gonna have a state park in Russell County at St. Paul somewhere, and that property been bought up and that's coming?
Yes.
And then I had the pleasure of visiting at Carbo with the situation that's going on over there, that 1,800 acres that John Matney and William Wamper are working over there, and they're gonna reclaim that, and there'll be a 200-acre mega industrial park there with 2 miles of railroad front and the river and gas, et cetera. And I know it's kinda out of the way, but they've got a vision for that, and they're gonna turn that over to Russell County when they get it finished, and gonna give it to you, I guess.
That's exactly right.
The nice thing about that is, look, if you consider what we call the local workforce development area 1, which is from Bluefield in the north, Cumberland Gap in the south, St. Paul's about in the middle. So I think that makes a lot of sense, a central location that workers could more easily get there. Nothing against Tazewell County, nothing against Lee County, but if we could serve people toward the middle, as far as transportation, it wouldn't be, well, that's too far. You know, if it's closer, that would open up more opportunities for Lee, Scott, Wise, Dickinson, Russell, Buchanan, even, and the lower part of Tazewell.
And since people came in here 200 years ago, the backbone of our industry here has been agriculture. And we've had, 7 or 8 meetings together with Virginia Tech here and doing planning for that, and had all the counties come in. The one thing that they're concentrating on for that now, and I guess now that you've got the other industry tied down, our grant writer's gonna be working on trying to put in a meat packing plant for grass-fed beef, and that's a strong thing here. And then you can talk about regional cooperation too. You've got the Tazewell, Buchanan, and Russell counties working together on that regional cooperation to try to create that meat market. And then you've established an agricultural industrial zone in Hansonville.
Right.
And the first one in the state, and if we all keep working at that and make that happen, well, that's another place.
We actually have, I've worked with Dave here closely on a lot of these projects, but actually to reiterate on some of that, we concentrated and focused on our federal opportunity zones. And that's something I think that we need to focus on a little bit more. Those give 40% tax credits. There's a lot of benefits to industries and opportunities that could open up when you designate those. One of the areas that we had looked at for the first agriculture industrial site in the Commonwealth of Virginia was designated out here in the Hansonville, actually in the Federal Opportunity Zone. The other one is up here at Southwest Virginia Community College on a project I'm heavily involved in, right across from the college, that we just got a feasibility study approved to move forward on that project. And this is through cooperation. Our doors through the regional IDA are open to other counties. We have made that statement clear that the more that partners, the less risk you have. And when you can get new industry to come in here, and not just Russell County just putting up everything to try to grab the golden egg, but if you have 4 or 5 counties partner together, then the risk goes down, and then all of us are in on it. And then, you know, I would rather have a little bit of something than zero. And for a long time here, we've battled these battles of where it's going to be. Is it going to, like he just said, where's it going to be? Is it going to be in my county? It's going to be in that county? And you're exactly right. We've had these discussions. You know, people drive about an hour to work either way, and we need to focus, really focus on revenue sharing agreements, regionalism. One of my main focuses right now is to see what is, like say Tennessee, what do they offer? That's how me and Dr. Brown came together when I was kicking doors down at Workforce Development, trying to get money, pay for free tuition. I was asking, where do we get the funding and how do we get it? But the opportunities are there. Also, we're an hour's drive to 4 states. And my focus and my goal is to do interstate regional partnering, interstate partnering. I mean, we are on the borders of these areas, and what they might be doing, we might need to take a hard look at it, just like we did with what Dr. Brown brought to the table with Giles County. They had already implemented a program. I had my own name for it, and I was out here trying to figure out how to get it funded. And Dr. Brown said, I think I got the solution for how we do this. So that's how all that got working, and that's how all that got structured. But I really truly believe that when the borders are erased and we're able to regionalize our efforts and we're able to partner, you'll see people move back here in groves, new home development. They're going to be building housing at Southwest Virginia Community College for these new athletic students that's coming in. That's going to bring people back here. So I love what you are focused on, because it's truly a need, and it needs to be conversated more, really conversated more.
Well, let me ask you a question. I'm glad you brought that up, that what you're doing is with the intent to bring people back here. Let me ask you a question. What happened that we lost population basically over the last 4 decades? What happened?
Demise of the coal industry.
Yeah.
What about it?
They put us out of business.
Okay, I understand. What was it that about the mines and coal industry that happened? Jobs? Was it jobs? What kind of jobs?
High paying job.
So we lost population for what reason? Because we lost good paying jobs, right? We lost a lot of good paying jobs.
And the other thing too, they weren't real high paying jobs, but we used to have a multitude of garment factories in this area in Southwest Virginia. We've got one left now.
Right.
And it has expanded, opened up a
And
second
they're
operation. And and we were able to secure another contract through Secretary of Commerce that helped us to develop another contract through, and they've opened up a second division.
So,
Are these companies being outsourced to China, or are you saying that it's not competitive to be in that industry?
Honestly, Scooter, I think a lot of it is just knocking on those doors to see where the opportunity lies. And it was 2 years ago, I guess, we were in Richmond, and we were having a conversation at the time with Governor McCulloch to find out, well, it was during his term, to find out what we could do to strengthen our existing businesses. And we were going door to door, visiting our existing industries to find out how we could help them add 5 jobs. If every industry in Southwest Virginia added 5 jobs, just 5 jobs, it'd be unbelievable. and if we could help them to develop that. So I had went out and met with them, and my mom actually used to work at the sewing factory in Homemaker. And I was instructed by Randy Williams to pay local businesses a visit and see what their needs were. And we did, and we were going door to door, and he said, well, you know, I would like to have another product line. If I could open up a secondary division, and I could do this. So through that conversation and just letting the right people know, a phone call was made to Tempur-Pedic, and they made the connection, and they started the growth process, and now they've opened up a second division. So I think a lot of it is just, if you're waiting for the golden egg or waiting for it to fall in your lap, here in Southwest Virginia, it's not going to happen.
Well, all of that discussion around, you know, the growth and those types of things, what is it going to take to bring population back?
Jobs.
Jobs.
It's going to take jobs, right?
Jobs.
It's going to take what kind of jobs?
Good job.
Good paying jobs, right?
Living wages.
So, and I know this may be a little contrary to the way that we think. How do we qualify to be in the ARC servable area?
Low to moderate income.
Okay. Do we want to stay there?
No.
So how do we market ourselves as far as economic development goes? What's one of the primary things we use to market our region?
Well, I don't think it works, or it would have worked by now, to tell the rest of the world, we've got cheap labor.
That's horrible.
You know, that
That's
is
horrible.
But we've done that. I mean, we
That's horrible.
collectively have done that. We've talked about labor's cheap here, come on in. Well, I mean, they haven't. It was a selling point, or we thought it was. I'd like to see it where we say, oh, our wages are competitive with certain areas.
Let me ask this question. I'm asking questions to plant seeds for people to be thinking about as we move forward. Okay, what is it that we really can do? What do you think would happen in Southwest Virginia if we had an abundance of jobs that paid equivalent to the major metropolitan areas? What would happen here?
People would move here.
They would come.
They would flock, wouldn't they?
They'd make the calculus that the standard of living here is cheaper than when I live in the big city, and I can make a comparable wage. I'm actually making more money because my utilities don't cost as much, my bread, my
But would
my
they
milk
live
doesn't
here?
cost as much.
Would they live here? Because you're missing out on the fact that there's not a lot to do here.
I understand exactly what you're saying, and I've got, think about this, okay? I'm very familiar with Saltville, the Saltville area. When Olin had their plant up and they were going full steam, what all amenities did they have right there in that little bitty town of Saltville?
Golf course.
They had a golf course, yeah, they had a roller rink, they had a bowling alley, they had a theater,
Lake access.
Right.
lake access, everything right there in Saltville. Why? It was because there was enough high-paying jobs to support people being there that were willing to pay for those things.
That's right.
So how do we get those amenities that people want? We have to have enough high-paying jobs to support that type of lifestyle, right?
But when CGI and Northrop came here and they built those houses, the workers went to Washington County to live. And they didn't live here.
That's exactly right.
So,
But isn't Washington County in a region?
true. I mean, if you want
Isn't it part of the Southwest Virginia region?
When?
So just thinking, those are just things, those are just questions that I throw out there for people to be thinking about, because I think, and I spent a number of years working, spent 22 and a half years working for Tazewell County. I did a lot of work related to economic development, supporting the economic development efforts. And for years, I thought, you know, hey, this is the greatest place in the world because we can advertise that our labor is 30% less here. So you can come here, you can make the same profits you're making on the same products, but you're going to make money off of the cheap labor that we have. And I thought, man, that's great because we can get businesses to come here. But I look over the last 25 years that I've been involved in it, and the reality is we haven't really done a great job of getting businesses to come here. We've got some, yes, don't get me wrong. They're coming here and there, but it's not been like we wanted, right? It hasn't driven the wages. The other side of that is, okay, what's happening with labor? I mean, you said it earlier, we're at, what's the labor rate, the unemployment rate right now in Russell County?
About 4.2.
About 4.2%. Isn't that pretty close to full employment? I mean, in reality, isn't that pretty close to full employment? So what's going to happen? As you grow and you expand and you start bringing more jobs in, or as your existing businesses grow, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? There's two things. There's only two solutions to that problem. One, the wages have to go up, right? The wages are going to have to go up so you can compete for that labor.
But at the same time, we've got to have a trained or trainable workforce to attract them here.
That's true. We have to have the ability to train, the ability to have the workforce here. But ultimately, don't you think if we had the same wage rates, don't you think people would come? I mean, I know a bunch of people that have been here, that moved away, that live in other places, that work there because...
What if there was an initiative to work with Southwest Community College? Where'd he go? Oh, Rayon took off? Okay. So what if there was an initiative to work with students that graduate that were placed in jobs locally?
I think there's a lot of those type of efforts that are currently going on.
There's
a lot of those type of things that are currently happening. It's great work that, the community colleges as well as the workforce development folks, they're all partnering with businesses because businesses have such demand for labor right now. I mean, it's huge. It's bigger than I've seen in my lifetime, to be honest with you. So, yes, sir.
Yeah, I don't want to throw water on the fire. I do. The coal thing, it's impacted us all. But I heard this said at a conference recently that it's like it's a funeral that goes on and on and on. It's still an active industry, but my point is we keep bringing it up and bringing it up and bringing it up and bringing it up. We can say that, but is that, I mean, that's a crutch kind of. We've got to move forward, and that's just a personal opinion, doesn't represent. But my point is, set that aside. There are these challenges, like if you look at the United States, people are flocking to urban areas, especially younger generation. There's some trends that we've got to be aware of, and you can't blame the coal industry for that and the ebb and flow of that. On the positive side of this, and tourism was brought up, I think, a community that's a tourism destination, there's a thing that happens there. People become proud of that, and you're seeing that now. I mean, you're seeing a lot of that happen around here. Well, from the workforce standpoint, when you have that, it starts swaying the opinion of your current citizens and the younger generation from I'm moving away from here to, hey, maybe I'm going to stay here. And I'm not saying that's our magic bullet, but I'm just trying to say is I haven't worked with many communities that said we want to be Pigeon Forge. But I've worked with a lot of communities that said we would like to capture more dollars and make a sustainable downtown or whatever. Well, that also complements workforce. And I think you were kind of alluding to that, is that's one thing that I don't think we want to lose, and balancing that. The high-paying jobs are there, but when the CGI models kind of showed us if we want to really take advantage of that, we want to make sure we have the amenities close. And I think we're on the way there now, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, I mean, we got a feasibility study in right now. I can't go into a lot of detail about it. If it all goes through, and I feel very fortunate to be a part of it, I'm going to be serving as the chairman of the regional IDA, and we've been taking a direct initiative to have this happen here in Southwest Virginia. And, the multiple counties are partnering on this effort, partnering with you guys to make this happen. If that does happen, and I feel very confident it will, we're going to become the inlet, not the outlet. And that's what we need to focus on. How do we become an inlet, not the outlet? How do we get people their desire to want to move back here? Our job as leaders is to try to keep those taxes low, utilities low, some of those things within reason. So I want people to be able to build a $200,000 home or a $50,000 home or a $25,000, maybe live off the grid. I mean, I want everybody to have those opportunities to be able to buy a boat and buy a car and live and raise your kids. That's the reason we're taking the strain off the working people too, for free tuition. let's make it all level playing field. Let's give everybody that hope, and that way, you know, grandmother that's raising the grandson or granddaughter, worrying about how she buys her medicine or how she pays her power bill, she don't have to worry about sending that grandchild now to have a future, and we can put him in a college, and they can guide him and help set his career path, or her, and help, and they're doing that now. We're getting talent, unbelievable amount of talent coming to Southwest Virginia and Southwest, and kudos to you in taking that job there at Southwest Virginia Community College. But there's a lot of people being involved, and it takes a team, it takes a village to make it happen. It takes everybody in this room actually to make it happen, you know, and I think we're on the right path. And to that, Scooter, we are focused on those amenities, those types of things that will keep people here and have some of those level things.
Is the IDA going to directly work with small businesses?
Yes.
Startup businesses?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So what I'm hearing is that basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to diversify.
Yeah.
We're trying to create an ecosystem, right? An ecosystem that will support an influx of population, right? Or growth of population. That's really what we want to do. It takes all of the pieces.
It does.
And the labor is just one. Having good paying jobs is just one. You have to have everybody kind of working together. You have to have that educational system. You have to have the pieces coming together. But though, if you start with one, then it will help grow the others. And just based on what I've read, what I've seen, being able to provide or have high-paying jobs is really the catalyst. It's the thing that gets things rolling because people invest then. Not only do they invest in new houses and those types of things, they invest in really the community as a whole. But you're right, it takes all of us. And that's really what these are about. These are about getting all of us together, getting us talking about, okay, what is it that we can do to move us forward?
What about disparity in teachers' pay?
I think it all comes back to, you know, is what we're doing here really worth less than the exact same thing that's done in other areas of the United States? Is it? Is it worth less? I mean, we've got some incredible teachers that do incredible jobs. We have people with talent that is beyond, and they live here, they want to be here. But is it worth less because they're here?
Yeah, they do the same job here as in Washington County. So we need to probably get more aggressive to, you know, the people of the field.
I'll just quickly say, because I got to chime in here, I go home to my parents and talk to them, and they feel the same way about a lot of these things, but he just hit the nail on the head. Is I'm like, Mom, you need to call and say something about that at the town level or whatever, but if you're going to keep it here, I'm respectful, but the point is, we've got to get aggressive, and we're seeing that, and where we're seeing that, some things don't, you know, they don't work out, but if we're not there and we're not doing all those things, we're missing heck of opportunities, or a lot of opportunities, and that's been a challenge, but I think that's a strength now as we're seeing people say, it doesn't have to be like that anymore.
We don't have to do the same thing we've done for the past 40 years. We can do things differently. We can be different. We can be, today, anything we want to be.
Well, if you bring good paying jobs, I will say this. My focus, I mean, even serving on the budget committee and trying to find a solution, like Scooter said, to a lot of the issues. There's solutions to all these issues. And there's solutions to everything that we have discussed here today, and they can be addressed. One of the things I've seen, and I worked my tail off, is to bring industry in here, good paying jobs. And the reason you do that is because the competitive level of that is when we get aggressive to bring good paying jobs in here. There gives somebody that has a selective mind that says, look, they're paying $45,000, $55,000, $60,000 a year with the same ability I have. I love my children, I love my students, but you know, it comes a point in time where, you know, to make it very competitive, so these counties, and if Dr. Brown's here, I would tell him, it's all about how much money you got coming in. You can't print it in the basement. So you got a level fund, and you got to have a budget to operate up front. But what we do is when we start gaining strength and getting new industries, we build our tax base. Well, somebody is going to have to take the honest approach and say, where do we reinvest that money to get a good return on that investment? And you're going to have a strong leader or leaders that make that assertion. Or either they're going to go over here to the new company that we just landed, and they're going to say, hey, you know, if they're not going to come up with the wages, I have an option to go to. So I think that gives us a balance and a level playing field. But we need jobs. We need great paying jobs. Jobs that come in here with these new companies and provide retirement and good benefits. And then and we're getting them, they're coming. So as that happens, it not only does that, it does it itself. You don't need a whole lot of real leaders to drive that force. That force takes care of itself, because as those jobs come and the benefit packages come, it gives me and you an option to say, hey, I might, you know, rather work for them. They're paying a lot better money, and, you know, might leave. So that does give us the competitive edge. We might not have the industries in Washington County and all that they have as far as generating the tax-based revenue through machine and tool and all that. But as we grow strength and we start gaining now that we're gaining and we're bringing it here, we're going to elevate, and we're going to have the amenities that we're going to do, and we're going to have. And in our businesses like Lebanon Block, people start building homes, they start moving back to the area, they start buying lumber, they have to hire 5 new people, and that's what we're seeing, and we're going to create that, you know.
What is it that makes it possible for our businesses to increase wages, to be able to provide those high-paying jobs?
I got the answer to that. I'll tell you how. I'm a guy that writes the paycheck, not signs the paycheck. I'm like this lady. And I'll tell you what, I started out as a coal miner, and I farm. I have 2 farms. And then I got into the cell phone business when it first came out. And everybody in my family said, I hate the phone in the house. I wouldn't have a phone in the car. Well, you look what it's done. And you know, Scooter, I was in the cell phone business, and his wife worked for me, and we sold a lot of cell phones.
Right.
And then I went, and I was reading an article one day. I got a lot of technology. I'm big into technology, and I got a magazine that said broadband high-speed internet. I thought, well, what's up with that? That's going to be the next level. So what I done is I went to a banker friend and asked to borrow money, and I figured for sure they'd say, we're going to have to get you some help, because I wanted to build the first broadband network system in Russell County. And I did. And now I'm in 4 counties. I'm in Dickinson, Russell, Tazewell, and Buchanan County. And I did it on my own dollar. And the reason, and that's a little tough, ain't it? To do it on your own dollar. But what that done, I'm sorry, that helped me actually to understand the challenges. There's times I didn't get a paycheck, but I made sure everybody else got a paycheck. And there's times, you know, I wondered, you know, from time to time how it would work. But through those challenges, through those types of challenges, gives you that level of understanding, you know, of how to get from point A to point B. And that's why I feel like that everybody in this room that provides employment, you provide employment, they depend on you guys. You know, and I think that right there is what's going to really amp this up, the kind of people you got here at this table that can push the envelope a little bit, think outside the box.
Okay. So what is it that makes it possible for companies to be able to pay higher wages?
You've got to increase profits.
Yes. Yeah. Me and my
That's the only thing that makes it possible.
Me and my business, I tell you what, I have cable, internet, and phone, and I would rather have 100 that could afford to pay me than 5 that couldn't afford it. And you got to keep your rates within line. You got to be able to do that. Just like, I guess I'll turn it over to him, but I'm sure he's the same way with materials.
But I'm kind of going backwards just a little bit to where Scooter was talking about CDI and how, you know, a lot of those people didn't live here. There's plenty of land in Russell County or in Southwest Virginia, but there's not a lot of land to build homes on. I mean, the subdivision down there at school's a pretty good example. I mean, it's almost full. I mean, there is a few lots there, but that developed pretty quickly. I mean, that subdivision went in, what year did that start?
10 years ago.
10 years ago, yeah. I mean, it has developed. But when people come in and we have a good paying job and they want to build a home, there's not a lot of opportunity as far as quality lots, places to build. I mean, maybe a new subdivision or something like that would be.
So would you consider that a problem? The problem is?
Yeah, I think
you know,
so, because
not
when you're
having a
trying
lot
to
of
draw
available
workers into
housing
there.
lots, okay?
And then on the flip side, you got Ponderbrook that just didn't go.
Yeah.
Right. It's beautiful.
And the riches.
That's all.
Okay,
I
so.
don't understand. I think it's back to the skilled labor. They don't come in because we don't have the workforce to provide them. So which comes first, the chicken or the egg?
Oh, here we are back to that one.
That's
Every
exactly right.
every
That's
round
really,
table we've been
in
to,
reality,
somebody uses that phrase.
That's one of the things that we're talking about here.
You
I said
can't.
it again.
You know,
How do
who's
you
gonna
know
support it? We can't.
where to
All the
start
small
working?
business can. We can't support doing it.
So what do we have here today, or have in our region today, that actually can drive growth?
Education system?
We have an education system that can help drive growth. We have businesses, right?
We have an entrepreneurial spirit that's
An
coming back.
entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah,
So that would be a strength, would be an entrepreneurial spirit.
I think we have heart. That is back to what you all about. We've got heart in Southwest Virginia.
Sam, you mentioned profit, how you make, or how you, can you increase those wages? With my economic development experience, one thing we heard from existing companies that had plants all over the U.S. or the world, many times when we competed for a project, they said, I think we're in good shape here to compete because we're more productive here. When you look at the workforce, they're dealing with all the challenges in other urban areas where people flow in and out all the time, people are more dedicated, so their production can be more consistent and higher. And I know this is not everywhere, but we've seen that in Southwest because people are dedicated. And if we could leverage that or continue to build on that and leverage that, I think that's definitely an opportunity.
Okay, so we have a strength of a dedicated and productive, very productive workforce.
And I think every community says that, but when you look at numbers and people flowing in and out,
That's exactly right.
You know, that's where the rubber hits the road is when a company says, oh, we're having that challenge in other places.
Right, that's exactly right. So the opportunity would be to leverage the fact that we do have a very productive workforce for businesses from outside. Yes, sir.
Yeah, one of the things I think that we're kind of missing a little bit is our history here, which goes back into tourism. The first Europeans that were in Virginia was DeSoto. He was in this area, and he killed over 1,000 Indians at Saltville. Also, George Washington spent a lot of time in this area. He spent 3 weeks in Coburn. The Clinch River is the third oldest river in the world. It has over 100 different kind of fish in it. Has over 40 different kind of shellfish. A lot of, well, so in Europe there's only 12. We've got more different kind of vegetation in the Central Appalachian Mountains than any place else in the whole world, with the possible exception of Amazon River Basin. We've got different kinds of insects here that are found no place else on the planet, maybe Amazon. The same thing with different kind of flora, and there's a program developed by Virginia Tech where you can take your cell phone up to a tree, it'll identify the tree and what it's used for. I mean, over 400,000 people a year walk on the Virginia Creeper Trail. Most of them have no idea what they're looking at. Talking about bringing people in, and you can do the same thing with flowers. Take a picture of a flower and come back for what that's about. Also, one of our big assets that we aren't doing a whole lot about is music. Here in Lebanon, I'd go down and videotape Ralph Stanley on the sidewalk down here, have 2 dozen people show up for Ralph. He'd go to Japan the same week and fill the stadiums. You know, what are we not doing to help ourselves? And you could look at 100 different areas the same way. I was vice president of Clinchfield Coal Company. We employed over 3,000 people, mined over 18 million tons of coal a year. They made between 70 and 90,000. They're all out of work, and the able bodies have moved because they're one place to support their families. But you could go into all sorts of other aspects that will bring that back, so.
So we have some opportunities around our environmental diversity, our history, figuring out how we can better market ourselves in those ways. That could be an opportunity for sure. But what else is it that we have here already that can drive growth?
Well, I'll tell you, we're working on a project right now in agriculture.
Okay.
Agriculture, everybody's affected in agriculture.
Okay.
And we've got 2 different projects going right now with agriculture. We just had 2 designations of agriculture industrial sites. We're looking at doing the meat processing. I do serve on that board as the chairman of the Go Virginia. And we've been very aggressive to partner with Districts 1, 2, and 3. Our plan is to build 2 meat processing facilities, one in this area in Russell County and one in Carroll County. And if you look at the numbers, and it all comes down to that regional cooperation, if you look at the numbers from Carroll down, even in beef, we feed America. We feed America. And not only that, I mean, we have goats and sheep and now elk. I could go on for hours with you on all this stuff that's been going on. But the agriculture industry made it through the Great Depression. The agriculture industry feeds America. We have the best grass. We have the best water. We have those things. I'm kind of like Ernie, and me and Dave had this conversation. There's not really a big need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to take advantage of what we got. We got some of the greatest assets, not only in people, like Dustin said, an entrepreneurial spirit, like that's unbelievable when you get it around it. It's like a magnet. But not only that, but we have everything we need right here in Southwest Virginia to make this happen. We just need people that are willing to be aggressive and think outside the box and do it differently than it's been done for years. The old can that's been kicked down the road for so long, you got to do it differently.
Hey, David, my wife just started working with Tommy Schrader up here at Gas Field Services, and they do fracking, and they're primarily in the West Virginia area, and it's booming. What's keeping our area from like exploring those opportunities here?
I think there's a lot of regulatory issues that's based in that. Every state has its own regulatory issues when it comes to the fracking issues. You know, we have and we are getting tax-based revenue through the Virginia Coalfield Economic Development through gas production, coal production. Actually, that has went up. It has went up. It ain't all gloom and doom. Now I think it's the right time for us to get a little bit more diversified in our and not always just kind of throw it back at all that. There's a lot of good things happening in the coal. There's a whole lot of new development, new angles that they're kind of taking for coal and coal production. I know in that industry, I believe with all my heart that we need to totally support and continue to focus in that area, because it's not, I don't think it's ever going to go away. We might got smacked down, but I think that we still have opportunity. I think with natural gas. And you know, I'm a proponent of looking at alternative types of energy too. My son Josh just became a 5-star student and developed a power pack operated from solar power. Well, if you talk to the people in the coal industry and you talk to AEP and Dominion Power, they also are taking an initiative to look for alternative ways of energy through storage. How do you store power? We lose more than we store. So I think that and the research that's been done through our agriculture program, we've met with a company that's looking to take all the waste from the manufacturing facility or the processing facility for beef. They said they'd buy it all. And they told me they felt like that our meat processing plant could be sustainable. I think that it should be a co-op. I think all the citizens in the area and the region should have a part of it. You know, and I think the farmers, and working with the farmers, will have the opportunity, and Dave knows this as well, they have multiple options through cattle markets, selling their beef, selling their cows, you know, or maybe processing them. Maybe taking a beef to have it processed. You might want to raise it a certain way. And you might wanna, go online and say, I want that cow, and I want that cow processed at this facility. So those are the things that we're trying to do differently, you know, and we're working with our coal partners and our gas partners. And we need gas for all the localities.
Mr. Rainey?
Yeah, and after, sometimes I just blurt things out, I don't think them through, so I apologize, but I don't want anyone to think I meant that the coal industry has had a long funeral. What I meant was that topic. We always seem to go back to that and that, because we can't rely on that totally. And that, I've heard that, but the reason I tell you that is because the coal industry, we've got a lot of great employers, and you've worked on this. If they diversify and look at what technology they have now, if that can transition into another industry or looking in the future. So I think that's an opportunity as well, and we're seeing that. But
We have an opportunity to transition through diversification in our existing manufacturers.
yeah, and they run business, they know business, they have employees, they've got that down, which is important. So if it's easier for them to transition sometimes than us to bring a new industry. And so that's the point I was trying to make.
That's kind of what I was getting at. You just hit the folks that can drive our wage rates today are existing businesses, right? How much effort do we put, economic development-wise, into bringing businesses here versus in comparison to building our existing businesses?
Well, that's a key. What we started focusing on is actually supporting existing industry. You know, there's a lot of industry. I met a guy there the other day in Buchanan County that had told me that his county administrator had never been in there in 11 years. Never set foot in his business in 11 years. And, you know, I think that we got to take a more aggressive approach on the support of existing industry. The trickle-down effect of what they do and who they supply. You know, all these industries and all these businesses, it could be insurance related, it could be, they know a lot of people. And they do a lot of business with a lot of people outside the area. We have existing industries right here that sells the product and ships it overseas. They ship it, you know, throughout the whole United States. But if we could help support that a little bit deeper, that they could, we might be able to ramp that up and help market them a little bit better. And I know we're trying. We got a lot of good people in this room today that's doing that, that's pushing that envelope, that's, you know, trying to open those doors. But from the state level, we need more support.
So an opportunity would be to work towards greater support for existing businesses and industries within the region, helping them to drive their profits, those type of things. Okay. We've got
I don't know if you've addressed this or not, but Dustin's working with substance abuse problems and things like that, and that's a real problem here too. Sometimes a lot of people come apply for a job and they can't get it because they can't pass the drug test. So that's a problem.
That is a problem.
And it's not just here. I've got friends in Culpeper in Northern Virginia, and they've got the problem there too. But,
yeah, and that is a problem. And there are opportunities around working on trying to solve that through social programs, right? There's certain social programs that are in place that are...
Well, for example, free tuition.
Right.
There's they've got to follow the rules.
Mm-hmm.
This is not just free. You know, you have them vested here with their community service hours, but if they mess up, they lose that opportunity.
Right.
And that might give that child the ability to think about taking that drink or doing the drug. Well, if I do that, I'm going to lose. I'll lose my free tuition. So, you know, we gotta think a little deeper here on how we break those cycles. Create that opportunity for that child to not have to look for that dependency on something else. Give them some hope, you know, to do that. So I think some of that we're working toward to break those cycles. And I think Dustin is doing a great job on that. We have Mountain Movers, which me and Dustin's a part of Mountain Movers. Mountain Movers was created partnering with our local churches to make an impact in our community. Lisa is heavily involved in Mountain Movers. We brought all the state agencies together. I wanted to be educated to find out what Lisa did. What do you do? And you ran this department, but I would like you to tell me what you do, and she did. We had a meeting, and she explained to me that here's what we do. I think all leaders, all board members, people need to be educated on what's available, so we can put a dent in the need. We've put roofs on, we've provided care for families, we've worked with, on housing projects, we've built wheelchair ramps. The foster care initiative is a key to my heart, and we went from 101 kids down to 88. We got 25 new families signed up to take foster kids, and that's right at $7 million impact in the 6-county region.
And I would also say that, just tacking on the substance abuse, there are some initiatives that are in the works, some really nice comprehensive programs that are in the works to tackle some of those challenges and to work with employers. And so when those kind of come out, and I would just encourage employers to please keep to step forward and be a leader in those initiatives, so that we can, because if we are dealing with 4% population, unemployment, that's who's left.
Right.
The people who were educated and the stellar employees and those sort of things who've grown up and have great work ethic and all that, they're working. What we're dealing with now in workforce are the people who have barriers. They're barrier employees. And so we've got to find a way as a region to combat that until we can get this new flux of people coming in who don't have any of those challenges. And nationwide, if you look at the statistics, they still have those challenges. We're still going to deal with it. So that's one of the things that the Southwest Virginia Workforce Development Board is really digging in with some of our community partners across state lines, different things, to develop some sort of a system where we can really comprehensively tackle that challenge and move it forward. So and I'm sure people will be coming around, they'll be talking to you about it, inviting you to meetings. Please go. Listen to what they're asking us to do, so that, because it's going to be crucial. You know, we don't know how long it'll take for that flux of people to come. It's not like we're going to roll these things out and next week, bam, 100,000 people are going to storm the city. That's not going to happen. It's going to be a trickle. And so in the meantime, we need to rework some of the people, retrain, reskill the people that we already have, and there are a lot of them. We think there are no jobs, and there are people, I hear that all the time. There aren't any jobs, like where are you going to put these people to work? We just had a job fair with 125 people looking for jobs show up. So there are people.
Job openings?
There were 100 job openings and 125 people that showed.
And how many of those were already employed?
A lot
at some level.
A lot of
them. The reality is we've got more jobs available today than we have labor force to support it. And even with that 4%, or what we call the 4%, I think it would be a challenge for us to meet our labor demands today.
Yes.
And with that in mind, well, let's think about what does that also drive, okay? What is another thing that happens when you can't get the labor you need, but you still need to be able to produce product?
Work longer hours.
Work longer hours, yeah, that's one thing. And I can tell you, there's folks that I know that, one guy worked 21 days straight.
Oh, yeah.
Crazy, what some folks are having to do. Randy?
Work can get shifted to other plants, to subcontractors, et cetera, outside of Virginia.
That's exactly right. But also with that, is there opportunity within our region to shift to facilities that may not be running at full steam? And I know there are. In fact, I've done some of that where we've partnered companies because, well, they're beyond their capacity here, so, let's connect with this other company that can do that. But what else does it drive? What happens when all of a sudden you've got all this product you got to make, but you don't have the people to make it?
It attracts more people to come in.
It can create open jobs, especially if the wage rate's high enough. What happens with automation? What happens with technology?
Send it to other countries.
People start thinking about, okay, how can we do this differently, right? A lot of times we work with a lot of companies related to process improvement. Okay, we go in and we'll help them to become more efficient through their process. But the new, I say new, it's not really new, it's been around for years, but it is growing, it's growing very quickly, is Industry 4.0. How many's heard of Industry 4.0? Industry 4.0 is the automation of our manufacturing processes. The automation, the changes that are occurring with the influx of technology into these businesses. Things like robotic welding, for example. We talk about our education, and that's something that we'll get to and we'll talk more about. You know, do we really know today what the jobs are going to look like in 5 years? And the answer to that's no, we don't. Autonomous vehicles. Autonomous vehicles are on the road today, right? You ever seen one driving on the highway? Drove past one or had one pass you? I have. I told my daughters it'd be 5 years. This was about 2 years ago, about 2.5 years ago. I told them it'll be 5 years and you'll see autonomous vehicles on the road. And about a year and a half, 2 years later, one was on the road with us. And yeah, it was a test vehicle. There was a passenger in the passenger seat, but the car was autonomous. It was driving itself. Autonomous vehicles are coming. Autonomous trucks are coming. It's going to change the trucking industry dramatically, okay? It's going to change the trucking industry dramatically. Volvo already builds autonomous trucks for distribution centers. They're electric. They have no cab. They're controlled there within that distribution center, yes, but they will be out on the road. It will get there. What sense does it make for it not to? You know, are we preparing for that reality? That reality is today. I mean, I don't know if any of you all saw it, but I saw an article just the other day. Somebody had taken a video of a guy taking a nap, riding in his Tesla, had his hand on the steering wheel, which is a requirement in order for the autopilot to work. But he had his hand on the steering wheel and he was laid back and he was sleeping. And the Tesla was driving for him. That's a reality. That is today. Okay? Do we realize that? Are we responding to that in the way that we do business and the things that we do and the things that we're teaching, in the way that we're preparing our young people? Stephen, you sent me an article just the other day on a new welding process. Fascinating, absolutely fascinating, where they're able to actually weld things like steel and glass and crystals together
At the same time.
They weld them together. How do you do that? New technology is going to change things.
I think going back to industry, let me throw this in there. We've got to leave. If it's okay, I've got to get out here to this other meeting. One of the things I'm working on right now with one of the large industry here in the county, they had a concern about, they wanted our education system to be educating our kids so they could go directly to work for them. Mm-hmm. And so the ideal concept that I had gained is for our industries to be able to teach from the location to the schools. And also be able to teach the teacher as well as teach the students. They're the only one, you're the only one that knows your business, and they're the only ones that know the industry. I think that we might need to catch up a little bit there to where we partner with our industry developers, and they have the ability, and they're willing to do this at their cost, to inject. And I had talked to Dr. Wright about this and had a deep conversation with him about how does CGI teach the next generation of coders and programmers. You know, we've got classes of cybersecurity, but in my business, in my line of work, it's about programming and coding. If you learn how to program code, you can defend the side of the cyber side, but you got to know how to program and code. So through those conversations, you know, our industries here that are willing to come here to locate and employ 200 or 300 people, just like we invited Dr. Brown to meet with every new industry that comes in, because education is so critical. And you know, these industries want to have an impact, and they want to be able to put one of their guys or gals in there and say, we're willing to help that professor teach that class. So what an impact. Who else offers that?
All right.
You see what I'm saying?
It's
That's a
definitely
service, that's a service that we could offer to the whole Commonwealth of Virginia. That's an ideal concept that we could offer. You know, if you have a business that's wanting to locate in Randall knows, and we're competing with Ohio or North Carolina or Tennessee, we better have a lot more to offer in the portfolio, or maybe to get close, you know, to that. So I think this, through education and training, is going to be a key component. We got to include our industry partners. It could be our coal-related industry, it could be gas, it could be something that your wife's doing, Scooter, there with the gas field operation, that those things could be implemented back into the training of teaching our next generation of kids. I think you're going to have to go all the way back to elementary education, and that's what we're trying to do, is to go back and break that cycle and set the career path of that 4th and 5th grader. I got a 25-year-old married, I got a 19-year-old in college, and a 13-year-old. Let me tell you, I woke up one day and realized, like Lisa, where'd they go?
Well,
You know what I'm saying?
Let me ask a question in relation to all that. What are the critical skills that are required in order to be able to be an effective coder?
To be able to be an effective coder? Well, there's not really an industry standard on that. It changes so rapidly.
What are the critical skills? What is it that the individuals need?
Yes, there you go.
Problem solving,
Problem solving.
right? What are the critical skills in making cinder blocks, in doing what you do?
It's
Problem solving, okay. What are the critical skills in dealing with agriculture and dealing with planning and knowing, you know, what are some of the critical skills associated with that?
Well, somebody usually has to have a background in it and kind of know what they're doing from ground up.
But you have to solve a lot of problems, don't you? You have to solve a lot of problems. So what I'm saying is, if we have a hard time projecting out, even 5 years, what the careers are going to be, what things are going to look like. But we do know that there are critical skills that need to be included in that, okay? And some people have called them soft skills. Not all of them are soft. I don't think any of them are soft skills. I think all of them are critical skills. But the ability to critically think, to solve problems, is something that has been lost in our educational system. I mean, that's just a fact. It really is. It has been lost. And most every group that I've gotten with, I haven't had one person in the groups that we've had that raised their hand and said, hey, we love the SOLs. We think the SOLs are the greatest thing that has ever happened. And I'm asking myself in my mind, if all of these people recognize the problem associated with the SOLs and the fact that it takes the ability to teach the types of critical skills out of the classroom, why are we still doing it? Why are we still doing it? If everybody recognizes that problem, why are we still doing it? And you know, part of it is it's dictated from on high at the state level, at the federal level. There's things that are dictated and we have to do it. But wouldn't it be nice as a region for us to get to the point where all that stuff really didn't matter? That we weren't dependent to the degree that mattered, where we had businesses that were strong enough and that helped us support. I love your idea of businesses being willing to share their knowledge with students in high school. Right there. But how do you fit that into the SOLs? How do you make that work in that environment? It's complicated, and it shouldn't be. So those are some things that we really need to be thinking about as we're going through this process. You know, how do we really want to change ourselves to be more effective and to be more capable of becoming what ultimately we're going to say this vision is going to be. So, you know, is there a way to teach those critical thinking skills? Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, appreciate it.
So we're going to move on to problems. What are some of the problems that we see? Remember, these are internal, these are ours. We own these. They're current. They're things that we're dealing with today.
I think one of the problems is we've got a lot of opportunities, a lot of good things going on here, but we're not communicating that to the public. You know, the public gets disheartened sometimes, well, what is happening here? But there are a lot of good things that are happening that the public doesn't know about, and if we get them encouraged to helping us with it or have a more positive attitude, that would help us a lot.
So communication is a problem, right?
Yeah.
And I think you actually had two of them there. The other one was, you know, sometimes we don't have a positive attitude. We don't feel like we can be anything that we want to be. So another problem could be a negative attitude or negative thought about ourselves.
Just perception.
And negative self-perception.
And you're back to what you said, the pride of our area, which could come from something that's not a product that will go down the other side of that, which is nature. The mountains don't fall down the other side like a product. So if we bring that in, we've solidified our future.
I think we have in this area though, because of the coal industry going out, like, the people still have hope that there'll be something else, but because we're not communicating that, hey, we're, you know, in the process of building that up because we haven't communicated that, they still see, you know, desperation. They've embraced that, you know, that this is a desperate area and not an aspiring and area full of opportunities. It's a problem with the mindset of flipping the switch. Like, how do we get them to turn a problem into a possibility? And it's there because they do have that entrepreneurial spirit and things. So there's just still a disconnect somewhere between this citizen and our, you know, workforce, you know, folks. Like, there's still a disconnect. I don't know how to.
Okay, I would say that
we need a bridge.
Ultimately, it's a communication issue, right?
Yes.
I mean, we're not communicating the positive things to the people at the level that they understand that, you know, hey, yeah, there's going to be opportunity. And even without the positive things that are happening, with the time that we live in, opportunity is well beyond what we can even begin to imagine.
There are lots of ways to attack that, like, for example, board of supervisors could put out more positive things, some of the things they've got going, and some things they've got going and know they can't talk about, but I've had that problem too. But anyway, Chamber of Commerce could help with that, put out positive things. Our tourism director could put out positive things and get people on the upbeat instead of going around them.
So that's an opportunity, put out more positive, focus on the positive, right?
And I will say, for the first time in a long time doing business here locally, our community is hungry. Like, we have people in our community that want to get involved in some things, and I've not seen that at this magnitude in the past. And for instance, when we did, we talked about this last week at the Rotary meeting, but the Chamber of Commerce actually sponsored, along with the hospital, and we hooked up some other businesses in the area last year, and we sponsored like a community, we're all getting buzzed here for something, but we sponsored a community Halloween celebration downtown. Over 2,000 people came out in the town of Lebanon. It was fantastic, and the first thing they asked is, what are you doing next? What are you doing next? So we have a community right now that's hungry for involvement. So if we can get the communication to them, I think that there's some people in the private sector that can help us.
And I think that you hit on a very important fact. And the fact is that, yes, we can be anything we want to be in our region, but we all have to work together towards that. We've got to ultimately come up with common vision and common belief that we can be.
And on that topic, I think it really, I mean, it is, we can say that, but there is an opportunity to do a more strategic outreach, marketing, advocacy campaign that is planned accordingly to the whole region, to where it does say, I mean, you cover things like, hey, we have low unemployment, and then you go straight to a business that says, we've got 10 positions that have been unfilled, and here are our challenges. You know, things like that, to where, as you said, there are people, including my parents, that I have to say, no, my nephew should have a job, because there are jobs out there. And I start sending links, and then you realize maybe he just didn't want to work at the moment. But the point is, there's some mindsets that need to change. We have a way to change that, and it can be not only from jobs that are open, but it can be, like you said, some of these great efforts are underway. The Clinch River Initiative's been going on for years. We're starting to see results in that. A lot of you good people have been working on it. But I think there's a lot of people who don't know that, you know, and that's going to take a very strategic effort. And can you imagine if it's done strategically to where Tazewell, Russell, Buchanan, Dickinson, they're all working to do it at the same time, where it's going to hit the papers and a spin for each county, but it's going to hit the papers from a regional standpoint at the same time. If that's planned out, that could be pretty powerful. It's going to take some time.
Absolutely.
I think having aggressive mayors, aggressive county administrators, things like that. I know Jennifer Chumbley, who works for us at Home Nursing, is the mayor at Cleveland, and she's put forth a lot of initiatives. But it takes people with a passion. You can't just want to have the position. You got to want to do something with the position.
Absolutely. We had a discussion just the other day at Wise County. That, you know, it really is about passion. And, you know, I'm seeing people in the room, I'm seeing people that believe in our region and that are passionate about it. How do we transfer that and work towards transferring that? Other problems that we see.
You mentioned something, I know Dave Leonard, with his background in economic development, could probably agree with me. Economic development does not happen quickly, unfortunately. When we did the Wise County City of Norton Business Roundtable, Dr. Steve Hooper was there. And he said it took Carl Snodgrass and Jack Kennedy 8 years?
7 years.
7 years to get him to move his coal to graphene research facility to Wise. That didn't happen overnight. And I think a lot of times the public gets frustrated because things don't happen fast enough. But you know, you go back to look at the planning district commissions starting in the 60s. They've worked on economic development and planning. But if you talk to the executive directors of our two, you know, Cumberland Plateau and Linda-Wisco, they can tell you things don't happen fast enough for them, but the public gets frustrated. Why don't they do something?
I think that's
and I
part of
always
the
say,
challenge.
which they are you talking about? You know, the people that make these things happen.
And I think that is part of our challenge, is the fact that things don't happen quickly, but we're in a world that is happening quickly, okay? I mean, let's think a little bit about the coal industry, and you know, in reality, 2012 was a booming year for the coal industry. Booming year, right? By 2016, where was it?
But you know, there's some positive things going on down there too. I was talking to a guy at the Valero the other day. He drives a dynamite truck. He said 2 years ago, I wasn't doing anything. My business was gone. But he said, now I'm so busy I can't keep the dynamite delivered.
You're exactly right, and there is great things that are happening, yeah. And I don't think
and you see billboards that people want to hire miners.
Yep.
You know, of course, there are not as many miners available now, so most of them are gone.
That's exactly right.
But then my gravel haulers are telling me they can't make profits anymore because there's too many doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, and that's part of the, you know, what the companies I work with, most of them have been, all of them have been in the coal industry, okay? They're working in the coal industry, providing product to the coal industry, you know, services, those types of things. Every one of them that I talk to think that things are going really good right now. They see us, probably we're at our peak. And this includes companies that know the mine permits that are being put in our region. They understand and know all the research that's gone into the process. We're at our peak. It's not going to go back up. Now let's think about the coal industry as a whole. I know volume-wise, yes, we're putting out probably more coal now than we ever have. But is it coming from the Appalachian region? And I think the answer to that is, for the most part, no, not as much. For us, that coal industry was great, and it went through its cycles, but that cycle has been like this, right? It's been going down and down and down. If it is today where it's going to be for the next, the anticipation for the folks that I've talked to has been maybe 5 years, if we're lucky. Then what's going to happen with that? How many of you are familiar with something called rare earth elements? Do you know what they are? No, they're in our coal. Actually, they're in the coal, they're in the overburden, they're in the ash, they're in the acid mine drainage. They're in all of those things. What are they?
Some of them are the ones you make cell phones out of, and big screen TVs.
Every device like this has rare earth elements in it. Where does 90% of our rare earth elements come from? China. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. The Department of Energy has had a number of projects going on for a while now. One at University of Kentucky, one at Penn State, one at WVU. I think the WVU one may be partnered with the Virginia Tech one. Trying to figure out, okay, how do we extract these elements from our coal, or from our waste material, or from our acid mine drainage, or from our coal ash, from the power plants. They're getting closer. Every day they're getting closer to being able to do that effectively and efficiently. It's a homeland security issue, ultimately. I mean, if you think about it, there probably isn't a military piece of equipment, other than maybe some mechanical ones that would be arms or something, that doesn't rely on the electronics that require rare earth elements. There could be opportunity there. How many of us are really looking forward to that potential opportunity? There's a company I'm working with that's very involved in it. They expect to be moving on into about a $20.5 million project coming up very soon to actually develop a preparation type process to extract these elements. A lot of times things take time, right? It gets into research, development, slow process. I don't think this one's going to be a slow process. I think this is something that's going to happen relatively fast. I think we're going to see it occur probably in the next 5 years, because really, if you think about it, can we afford for our technology to be supported by China? I don't think we can. I don't think we can. Yes, sir.
Yeah, another thing on that same aspect is the federal government and states are making us dig up all the ash from all these power plants and reburying them someplace else. And you're talking about millions of dollars there. You take that same ash, mix it in a slurry, put some salt and some other chemicals in it, put electrodes down there. The reason we can't use the ash now because of heavy metals, but the heavy metals will come out of the electrodes, and you can sell the heavy metals too. Then you can use that ash for almost any kind of building material at all. And there's ways of doing that too.
Right. So there's opportunities within what we have as well. But who's really thinking about that? Who's involved in that? Who in our region is really focused on, okay, how can we carry it forward? And if we do we have people thinking about, okay, well, we're going to have to develop a way to train people. We're going to have to develop a way to prepare a workforce. We're going to have to develop a way for this industry to take off and be something.
Are these rare earth element projects, are they mainly coming from existing companies that are transitioning to that, or is it startup companies?
Well, primary research is being done by at the university level, but there are companies that are involved. And I'm not sure to the degree that those companies have involvement, but I know they have to be in order for them to be actually getting the samples and those type of things. The folks that I know that are involved in it are involved on a highly technical level, and they feel like that the coal companies themselves will have huge opportunity. They really, I mean, it could be a transition. Yes, kind of a transition from, okay, well, coal's been at its peak. Yeah, it's always going to, coal will be around for a long, long time. It's not going to go away. You know, everybody that says, well, we're going to get rid of, you can't get rid of coal. Coal is in too many things. It's needed for too many things. Coal's going to be here. It's just, how can we make the most of what we have?
So these are extracted from the earth?
They can be extracted from, they can be extracted from the earth through mining process. They're in coal itself. They're also in the overburden, the waste materials, so the waste piles, all the waste piles that they have at the coal operations, they could be utilized. They're also in the coal ash, like we mentioned, so, you know, the power plants that are burning the coal can actually take that coal ash and use it to do extraction, and they're in the drainage itself. So the waters that are coming off, whenever they treat that acid mine water, is there a way to pull that and separate that from the water? And all those things are being looked at heavily because they are such an important issue to us as a nation. But when I asked the question, there was hardly anybody in the room that raised their hand that they knew what those were. Why is that? Why don't we know that?
We kind of touched on this earlier. I think we react and just work on the current opportunities. And from our standpoint, the last thing I think we would want to do is invest time, effort, money, equipment in training if the region is not, you know, going to be supportive of that or targeting that industry or whatever. Because we've seen that where, you know how many programs that we invested in as a Commonwealth or a county, and we were either ahead of our time or we hoped that there would be buy-in, regional buy-in, that wasn't. So.
And how do you compete with China? You know, how do you compete? I'm actually startup small business, and I'm working with China, acquiring certain products. And I did a research of those products, and they're less expensive, almost superior quality. So I don't understand everything about rare earth, but if there is some kind of help to the coal companies to transition to that would probably be good.
Well, I think the thing about the rare earths, the thing that excites me about the rare earths for our particular region is the fact that the Department of Energy has invested so much money. Every one of these university-led research projects is funded through the Department of Energy. And it's not small change, it's big money. So it being a homeland security issue, it kind of changes things a bit. The reality is that there has to be special exceptions for technical devices to utilize products that are coming from China in DoD applications. You can't just buy something to China and sell it to the DoD or put it in your product and sell it to the DoD. You can't do it. That's not, they don't allow it. So there has to be special exceptions. Well, this is one of those. They can always remove that exception fairly easy, and then it creates a whole new market. But they're not going to do that until they know that they can get it, right?
You got to have the supply first.
You got to have the supply first. That's exactly right. The other thing that I'm excited about in our region has to do with graphene, and we'll talk more about that probably down the line. But let's continue to move on. Let's talk about some threats. What are some outside, future, external issues that are threatening or have the potential to threaten us or to keep us in the path that we're on or keep us from actually growing? What are some of those threats?
More people leaving the area.
Okay, so population loss. How many people saw the population statistics, most recent population statistics? What was happening with it? It's continuing to happen, and it will continue to lose population significantly. And it's not just, Russell County, it's the entire region. And we have not even stopped the bleed yet. Okay? What other threats do we have?
You have less entrepreneurial spirit, which is how those rare earths are going to get done, rather than through the hierarchy of government.
So we have less entrepreneurial spirit?
Which might begin way back to our children and putting in implementing programs that teaches them how to problem solve so that they can become entrepreneurs. Again.
I think one of the threats is our attitude, which can be improved by communication we were talking about. If we get communication going up, we can change the attitude of the people.
Okay. So that would be a problem because it's internal, right? So the attitude of our own people is a problem. What about the perception from outside of our region? Is that a threat?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So perception from outside the region is a threat. Okay. What other type of threats do we have?
And what about automation? We talked about it, but automation can also be a threat.
Okay.
We're not there.
Automation could be a threat, potentially, yes.
I mean, because even, Food City has self-checkout now. Walmart has self-checkout now. So there are employees needed there.
All right. Maybe it has impacted the number of employees that are needed.
Yeah, they're starting to deliver groceries now. That's some programs, some grocery stores are doing that now.
Yep. So what happened to Kmart Sears?
They didn't change.
Amazon.
Right.
Which is why your mountain's important.
It is.
When
That's
we
exactly
figure
right.
out how to stay there. Change is always coming. Look at my industry.
What industry are you in again?
Insurance.
Insurance. Let me ask you a question. Once autonomous vehicles get fully implemented
Right.
and they don't have accidents, which will
Exactly.
happen eventually.
We're gonna be
What's
selling
gonna happen?
pet insurance. This is where it's going.
So, has anybody been thinking about, okay, maybe we should be thinking towards drone insurance? Because
yeah.
that's gonna be, it's gonna take a while for that to get to the perfection mark.
I mean, State Farm is a 100-year-old company, $100 billion company, and what did we just hear about Uber? And we think change isn't gonna bite us, right? I mean, this is the wake-up call to any community is how can we be on the good side of change? We know it's coming, can't stop it. It's the mountains here, it's what we're talking about.
The insurance
It's the heart.
industry actually could force it towards the autonomous vehicle.
That's exactly right.
Just by saying, all right, you want to drive your own car, fine, but it's $10,000 a year, or you could have insurance on this, or
It's a
How
change.
about
industry.
an aggressive project like Pinnacle's doing, where they're gonna put in that water park and hotel and,
Yeah.
develop 350 more acres. Some of those things are attractive to young people.
It'll heal the mental problem too.
I don't know if you could do that here per se, but I'm saying that is happening outside of
So
our
maybe
region.
an opportunity could be to put in a very aggressive, large-scale entertainment option or opportunity. Okay. Casinos. What other threats do we have? We're going to move, once we finish with this threats, we're going to move on to the, trying to keep track of time. I don't really want to hold you too much over. I have a tendency to go long on
Well,
these.
some things are outside of control, like the political atmosphere.
Okay, so the political atmosphere is a threat. Okay.
Regulation.
Regulation is a threat. Okay, absolutely. What other?
Regulation.
Regulation, political atmosphere. What other threats do we have?
limited resources.
Limited resources, okay.
Well, we've got I think, an excellent delegation at the state level. Everybody works together, and we've seen that for initiatives. I think there is a reality to this, and this comes out in every meeting west of Roanoke. There's great people in Richmond that help us, and I've worked with them over the years, but we are a long ways from that location. We are a different culture. The political maps show it, the geographic maps show it, the topographical, all of them do. And I think it continues to be a problem. It's not like it was years ago when I first started, probably you, but it's still a reality that there's mindsets about this, investing in this region, or the resources that are dedicated to this region, financial, staffing, etc. And it's one that we are working on, but I think it's one that's still is a problem in certain areas.
Okay, so state stopping at Roanoke?
Yeah.
I mean, let's put it the way you said it nicely, I can say it different, even though I'll probably get in trouble one day for saying it that way.
And that's a funeral topic too, but
that's
it's
exactly,
still one
it's
that
real.
It's real.
It's real, and we've seen it, yes, sir.
One of the other problems, talking about politics, is Southwest Virginia had been run for some time by the Democrats, mainly because United Mine Workers put so much money in. All the politicians would come out here. Well, there's no United Mine Workers to speak of in Southwest Virginia, and there's no big funding. United Mine Workers used to put millions of dollars.
So the loss
Now-
of political influence?
Well, and population. So why come out here and politics and find out what the problems are when you go to Virginia Beach or Richmond or Northern Virginia, where Washington's doing everything?
So a threat for us would be loss of political influence, and that also came up at other roundtables.
Yeah,
that-
we're
I
really hitting
believe
stepchild out
Chafin's
there.
done a phenomenal job in making, putting us on the map in Richmond again. He really has.
You know, population reduction affects that as well.
Yes.
Yeah,
It does.
that's what I was
Absolutely.
thinking. If we had more people, they'd stump here too, regardless of
Right.
District 28 of the United Mine Workers.
Let me
They'd
ask,
come
is-
in.
Is substance abuse and addiction a threat? Okay.
But you know, it was really nice that that topic didn't come up first,
Yes,
which too often it does.
that's the thing.
It's not
this
like
is-
I want to forget about it, it's just we talk way too much about
That's
that. Way too
I
much.
mean, we're projecting an image
Yeah.
that doesn't attract.
And if I could grab, of course, I know a lot of newspaper people, but if I could grab every newspaper in our region and say, look, I realize you gotta put the drug bust story somewhere, just don't put it at the top of the first page. Stick it on the second or third page, because other people from outside the area read that. And they see 23 in big drug bust. That's all they ever see, opioid addiction crisis. Now, that's true, it is true, but we're not that much different from other parts of the country when it comes to opioids.
I have a question. This 4% unemployment, do they take out of the, somebody might know, out of those numbers, all of our folks that are on disability? And so we have 30-some% on disability.
They're not in the labor force.
Right,
They're not-
see, that's what I'm
they're not
saying.
reflected in the
So
labor
we have,
force.
that is a threat, that is a blinder issue
So-
that we are not realizing.
You have to look at the labor force participation rate. It gives you a clearer picture when you combine those two.
So.
Exactly, so we really don't, I mean,
Is
we've
that
got
rate
a lot
higher
of
than
people
that
making,
or is it county?
which
Could
is
work.
fueling that problem.
So really, dependency in general,
Yes.
dependency in the sense of dependency on government for life, really.
It's definitely an issue.
Because then it
So
becomes
that,
nice.
is that a threat? Is that a threat or is that a problem?
That's a threat.
And that goes back to your wage discussion. If average wages for a community are at an amount where if you can look at government assistance and you can maintain the quality of life working 40 hours at one wage, or, I hate to say it, but utilizing those services, there's a lot of people who say, you know what, I can utilize those services. And we have employers who say that's a competitor to them, you know, is the government. And then that's not always the case, but the point is we know that some employers say that.
It's definitely a thing.
And it's not just one group, it's generational, right? So, I mean, I've heard people say, well, you know, I had a 7th grader say that they were just gonna get on disability when they got older. Which, to me, is just sad. It's just sad. But, so generational dependency. Let me ask a question, just for thought, just for us to think about, and as we move forward to really have in the back of our mind. ARC has certain standards, and a lot of these grants have certain standards that are required to be met in order for us to receive what we call free money, right, to do different things with. Is that a dependency that's a problem?
Explain that again.
Okay. In order to qualify for ARC funding in multiple projects, a lot of times you have to have the low to moderate wage, be in the LMI, low to moderate income class or area. You also have to meet other problems or have other problems or use those problems or what they are to actually apply. Is the fact that we qualify and that we've utilized a lot of different funding sources that require those things, is that a dependency for our region?
I think so. I mean, it's the same, just on a different scale, but I mean, it's still a dependency, isn't it?
Okay. I would, I've seen many times that we can get grants because we advertise the fact that we have, so many people that are in the, I guess, the justice system because of drug-related issues. We can get grants for that, and we go after them, and we want that. We want that, what we consider free money, but the reality is nothing's free, right? Nothing in life is free. So is it worth for us as a region remaining the way we are to get that?
It would be nice if we couldn't qualify for it.
That's exactly what I would love to see happen in our region. Wouldn't it be incredible if we had the ARC map that showed all the areas that qualified and there was a big donut hole where Southwest Virginia was? Wouldn't that be incredible?
Well, it's a good selling point, too.
Wouldn't that be incredible? It would be a story that has never been told that I'm aware of. It would be an amazing thing. So why don't we do it?
The Oasis phenomenon.
Why don't we do it? We can. We can. We have opportunity now. Change is happening now, very, very fast. If we could jump into this change and not be run over by the change train, if we can be on that train as a region, as citizens, as people, if we can be on that train, then we can be a part of something that changes our world forever, our region forever. I mean, think about it. Tell me how many companies are moving out of Austin, Texas?
The place is growing.
Zach?
I'd say none.
What do you think? What do you think? How much do you think it costs for them to pay for their labor there?
Oh, it's not cheap there.
Right. How many incentives do you think they get to come there? I mean, think about it. If we really think about it, really look back, how many places have been able to advertise themselves as low labor costs, depressed areas that have actually grown? How many? It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. The only reason people are leaving from Silicon Valley now is because of the tax rates, the changes in the tax structure there, and you don't have a lot leaving there. So
it's a two-edged sword, because you're saying give up the money to change the perception, but you have to give up the money
to change the perception.
Right.
Exactly right. And I'm not saying that we have to give up the money immediately. What I'm saying is, how many years have we gotten that money, and how has it changed us? Where did it go? What did it do to change where we're at?
Well, we've kind of allowed that to define who we are. You know what I mean? Like Dave was saying, you don't want to project, that's who we are. I mean, it's just like the welfare system or the not necessarily disability, but I mean, it's supposed to help you come out of it, not a place for you to stay.
Honestly, listening to you today and David has changed my perception. Because when you start hearing voices like David said, Mr. Leonard, that you need to get that positive message out. And so this is just such a small microcosm of everybody that needs to hear what you have to say.
Sure, and I thought about that earlier because I agree. We need to do it better, all of us. Every agency, every group, every municipality needs to do a better job of telling that story. So you need a better, stronger outreach message. And yet, you can blast the newspapers, radio, TV, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and people will still say, I had no idea. So I'm not sure where they get their information, but if they're not talking about it, then somehow there's, the word disconnect comes up. There's a disconnect somewhere.
It takes a
The
strong
beliefs are
leader.
instilled.
Yeah.
We've got decades of this belief instilled, and you have to break, I just wrote a 700-page book on it. That's gonna bring people to Southwest Virginia.
And you can't get political, I don't want to get political in
Probably
this
kill
room,
me.
because obviously there's, people believe different ways, but we do have a person that's in charge that's trying to bring industry.
It's
In
beliefs.
Detroit, you know, about Trump bringing, he landed a contract, who was it with, BMW or somebody, but you need to have people that's got that mindset, regardless of how you feel politically. That's a positive thing, and that's what you gotta have.
Well, you mentioned ARC, but there are other funding sources. In that regard, we will continue to utilize those funds as long as they're available, I think. I don't think we'll ever dig our
Absolutely.
heels
We
in
don't
and
want to
say
say, no, thank you, but we would love to get to the point where we don't need it.
Right, so then my question is, are we using those funds for the right thing? Are we thinking in that direction with those funds? Are we just trying to put out little fires? And it's easy for me to say this, but are we getting funding to help with a small group but not changing that bigger picture like Mr. Leonard said? And is that probably, I mean, not that marketing or campaign will fix it all, but it is about changing some mindsets. You know, some drugs don't have anything to do with how you're growing up or your perception, but sometimes, like he said, or you said, my dad did it, I'm gonna do that, you know, so.
Sam, the marketing is such a tricky thing as well. The research shows that a person has to see the advertising 7 times on average before it makes an impact. And only then, if that person needs that service or needs to know about it. So it's all on a as need. So it's difficult. We've done every area of advertising for our adult ed program. And still people will say, as Stephen just said, I had no idea. And we think, are you living under a rock? How could you not? You know?
Let me ask, what's the most effective form of marketing?
Well,
Word of mouth. Word of mouth, person to person, that's exactly right.
And
so how many people are here in this room?
stories. You know, if you can get,
Exactly.
if you have a medium to get your success stories out, put a picture of that person that they can identify with. It's as good, as close as you can get to person working.
Right. How many people do we have here in the room? How many people do you know?
At least 250. Well, that's based on Gerard's Law of 250, the guy who wrote How to Sell Anything to Anybody, Joe Girard. He called that Gerard's Law of 250. Everybody knows at least 250 people. That, of course, was well before the internet.
Right.
So you probably know a whole lot more than that.
So how many of you all are going to take that message out? I'm taking it out, trying my best to. How many of you all are going to take the message out? Okay, let's look at industry structure real quick. I'm going to get started. Who are some of the players? We're just going to do the players. In our region, who is it that provides services, products, support, everything?
AT&T,
Not specific businesses, but groups. Energy? Energy would be one. Agriculture would be one. Okay, let me get my thing here so I can write these things in. So energy, agriculture.
Education. We do lots of home health in these areas.
I have energy, agriculture, healthcare, education. What else?
Manufacturing.
Manufacturing.
Retail.
Entertainment.
Manufacturing, retail, entertainment.
So what would CGI Northrop Grumman fall under?
I would consider that technology.
Information technology.
Information technology.
There's also coal mining and the coal mining supply chain, which is huge.
Coal industry.
Healthcare.
Okay, healthcare. Coal industry. Healthcare, what else?
There's timber.
Timber.
Timber had, I think, one of the biggest years they've ever had last year.
Logging.
Yeah.
Okay, what else? What other services are provided beyond education? That's really the only service that we have specifically up here other than education. What other services? We have governmental services, right?
I was thinking like
Social services.
HVAC places, general contractors. There are some queries.
There's a lot of opportunity for young people in general contracting.
Oh, yes.
In Southwest Virginia, and the base of all contractors are retiring.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of young up and coming contractors around.
We were in Grundy for a Buchanan County roundtable. Somebody there, one of the business people, said he knew of 5 or 6 general contractors who were based in Buchanan County. And he said, do you know what the youngest of those 5 or 6 was? It was a gentleman who was about 48 years old. There was nobody younger than that.
From what I saw, that's the same from Bluefield to Big Stone Gap. I mean, it's that way.
It's 12:30 right now. If you all want to go get food, it's out in the hall. I'm kind of going to continue on so that we can kind of continue through the process. I don't want to get too far behind. We'll probably have 3 sessions like this. I would ask, look around the room. How many people do we have in the room that are under 30?
Yes.
1? Okay. How many should we have in the room that are under 30?
Oh, as many as we get.
Everybody try to bring at least 1 person under 30 with you next time. Please come next time. I'm not finished yet today, but I want to get that out there before we get to the 1 o'clock hour. Food's in the hall if you want to get it. And come back and we'll continue on through this industry structure map so that we can keep moving. When you go online and you do your Google search, okay, that's artificial intelligence, specific artificial intelligence that is responding to you. Most of the time, if you have a computer and you run into a problem with the software and you need help, a lot of times if you're chatting with somebody, you're chatting with a computer, artificial intelligence. That's specific artificial intelligence. The next level is called general artificial intelligence. General artificial intelligence is whenever you take that specific artificial intelligence, you feed it a whole lot more very broad data, and then you ask it to use that data not for a specific purpose, but for a multitude of purposes, not defining exactly what you wanted to use it for. And they liken that to things like human intuition, being able to take a situation, understand that situation, and apply that situation to another similar situation, even though it's outside of that same information, outside of that same situation. It's kind of like being able to think, being able to relate, creating situational awareness. And then there's a third type called super artificial intelligence. They thought that in order to get to general artificial intelligence, it was going to take about 10 years from really is probably 3 or 4 months ago that I read the article, and I don't know, it may have been a couple of months old. They thought it was going to take about 10 years to get to that general artificial intelligence level, right? Well, it happened. And it happened overnight. And it happened without them trying to make it happen. Google was trying to expand on some of their artificial intelligence and some of its ways of doing things, and poof, all of a sudden they have this program that, without being asked to, taught itself how to play chess. Okay? It wasn't asked to teach itself how to play chess. It just went ahead and learned it on its own. And not just any chess, it could play at the level of a grandmaster. And it did it in 4 hours. Now, that gives me chills to think about that. Gives me chills to think about that, because super artificial intelligence is the next step. And super artificial intelligence is whenever the AI has access to all the information available through the internet. Okay? If it can learn to be a grandmaster in 4 hours playing chess, then what could it learn if it was turned loose with all the information that's available on the internet? Okay? That's a concern. It's such a concern that Stanford University actually had studies going on where they had these very highly intelligent people who understood the ramifications of turning artificial intelligence loose. They had them go through scenarios where they would check to see if they would ever turn it loose in the internet. And they did a number of different scenarios, a number of different ways they looked at it. Every single time, those very intelligent people that knew what the realities of artificial intelligence loose within the internet would do, every single time they turned it loose. Every time. And so it's a concern. It's a problem. And it's such a concern that organizations like DARPA, are you familiar with DARPA? That's the Defense Research, or the research arm of the Department of Defense. They're actually paying a university significant sum of money to figure out how general artificial intelligence happened and how it actually works, because it was an accident and they don't really know how it works.
So who's to say it's not already turned loose?
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. So, with that being said, where do we stand? What do we understand about the environment that artificial intelligence works in? And how can it impact what it is we do every day? Substitutes, there could be substitutes that we can't even begin to imagine yet that come online in a very short period of time. I mean, you think about the problem solving that has to be done in order to become, I mean, people will spend an entire lifetime to become a grandmaster at chess, right? It's not as simple as, okay, well, you move here, you move here. No, it's not like that. It's strategy. You have to understand strategy and how to develop strategies and how to defend against strategies. It's not a simple 1, 2, 3. Imagine the problems that could be fed to artificial intelligence that it could solve, maybe very, very quickly related to technology itself. You know, we're in a time frame. I don't know, were any of you at the Economic Development Forum about 4 years ago almost now? If you haven't gone to that, I would encourage you to consider going to that, because it really is a good thing. They had at that one they had a futurist, can't remember his name, but I certainly remember what he said. And he said that he gave a lot of predictions, but he said that, you know, we're entering into a new age, and it's not going to be an industrial revolution. It's not going to be a digital revolution. It really is a space revolution. And if you look at the news, you can see we really are doing way more with space, and that's going to be the new frontier. It really, I mean, it is. It already is there. But with all that said, where does that leave us in the things that we do manually? And how are we thinking about how we could potentially change some of those things? Are we really aware of where we are today in time? Think about the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution took a long time, right? It was a slow progress. People resisted. There was a lot of pushback, but it happened. Then, you know, came a more mechanical revolution, and it got even better. And then came an electronic, right? Everything was cool. It was electronic. They could now attach motors and those types of things to this mechanical stuff, and they could do it. So that took place, and it happened. And then a digital, where they were able to monitor some of those electronics and understand a little bit more about what was happening with them. Then came the computer age. We actually can program and manage those electronics. If you look at the timelines, Industrial Revolution took this amount of time. Mechanical, electrical, digital space, and it's very, very short. And when we realize, you know, the gentleman that dealt with handled the cell towers, you know, are they thinking about what will be coming next? Because it's not going to be about terrestrial broadband. Okay? There's going to be satellites within 5 years that are going to be able to provide that internet service all the time, wherever you are, anywhere in the world. Guess what that does? How many billion people no longer have access, or no longer have the barrier of not having access to the internet? In China, in Africa, in all these underdeveloped nations, changes things on it. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no. I mean, I was in Mozambique, and they're carrying their babies in baskets, but they got their cell phones. But I said it's a disruptor. Every age is a disruptor, and if you're not, the buggy whips the whole thing.
Yep.
If you don't figure out how to change, and the internet age happens so fast.
It did.
That I don't know what you would do in a county situation to be on the cutting edge of that. That's $1 million question.
Well, I think we got to be thinking about that. We have to be thinking about that, because if we don't, do you think that we can reverse our population trends and do the things that we want to do? And the answer to that is no.
Well, I was going to say, and there's some initiatives underway on this front, but there's the opportunity of being able to live and work here for any company, not any company, but a lot of companies across the globe when that happens. It's already happening, but more and more companies are becoming, because of the workforce challenges, they're becoming comfortable with utilizing workers all over. But we have to have those workers trained and ready to be available for that.
But with super AI, why do you even need those workers?
That's a good question. That's a very good question. So what's next?
Yeah,
what's next? And that's the things that we have to be thinking about. Okay, what is next? With the changes that are happening with the internet, and you know, do I think super AI is something that's going to come? You know, hope it never comes, to be honest with you, because it's really scary. The way that it was put in this particular talk I was listening to was that then once super AI gets in place, we become the fly on the piece of cake on the counter. I mean, what are we needed for once it's able to do all of those things? And people think, you know, well, that's just crazy. That's just nuts. Think about this. How many things that we've seen on TV have become reality? Why is that? I mean, decades ago, you look at Star Trek, you know, they had the flip phones, right? They had the communicators. People were able to envision it.
Talk to him to his telephone.
Yeah. They had people that could envision something different. And then over time, people work towards that. And so what we need to embrace is the fact that we need to learn to envision, right? It really is about learning to see what's coming in the future, or the changes that are taking place and how they apply.
Bad thing is the only movie I can think of is Terminator.
And we assume that this AI is a positive thing, but we haven't discussed how it could be a negative.
That's exactly right. You're exactly right. And, I mean, what was it, Minority Report, I'm thinking is the name of the movie that Tom Cruise was in. And I saw an article the other day that there's actually a software out there that can anticipate shoplifters. They can anticipate them based on their body language that this person is going to shoplift. And they're using it. It is real. It's not here in the U.S., but it's being used.
And you have to conclude a lot of this technology is used for nefarious reasons and not always for the good of man.
That's exactly right. So, you know, how do we, you know, what role do we play in that? And how do we embrace what we should and hold back on what we shouldn't? And those are things that we need to think about as communities. And I'll kind of stop with that. I think we made some very good progress today, and I appreciate everybody being here and taking the time to be here. What we're talking about really is about change. And, you know, it's not something that I can do. I can only do it for myself, but there is something that I told whenever I started my 911 system years ago. I told the folks that I worked with, you know, we can change the world, but we do it by changing ourselves first, and it has to happen one person at a time. Our region can be changed. We can be different. We can be anything we want to be. We're in a time that, unlike any other time that's ever been, a time of opportunity where wealth can be gained beyond our greatest imagination. Are we willing to work for it? Because it does take doing the hard things. It takes making the hard decisions and doing the hard things. We can't keep doing things the way we've always done them and expect it to happen, because it won't happen that way. I can look back just over my 25 years in the workforce, and you know, see an awful lot of things that we've done and we've done and we've done, and we've done the same thing, and it never produced what the expectations were. So what do you think? What do you think about what we're talking about? What do you think about, you know, this process we're going through? Is it worthwhile? Is it worth taking the time out of your day to do it? And how can I do a better job? I really don't mind criticism.
I think you've stimulated our thinking and maybe get us to thinking more, and that'll be a good thing in the long run.
Okay.
And we already established that word of mouth is the best form of advertisement, so if we want to affect our community, then we need to be talking about all these things.
Has to start somewhere.
Is it worth continuing through this process? Do you want to continue through this process? Do this again in about 3 weeks or so. Okay?
I'd like to see work with Bezos.